She never knows when to turn the camera on. All right, we'll start with our 9 o'clock. We got a United States Forest Service update with Ranger Carol and Ranger Erin. Hello again.
Good morning.
Seems like you were just here.
I know it. Well, I thought we'd start this morning. Jared Koskela, our zone engineer from the West Zone, is here to talk a little bit about the Schedule A roads and whatever other road issues you might have, Jared.
Okay, was Jason gonna make it at all?
I talked to him yesterday and I mentioned it to him and he said he was gonna be here, so.
Okay.
I just seen him. He tried to run over me on the street.
Oh, yeah, I'm assuming he's gonna be here.
He actually even baited me. I started to step across, he stopped, and then he can't. It was close.
Yeah, I told him he was gonna be here at 9, so.
Okay, well, I do need to coordinate with him on this Schedule A. When I took over for Nate, this one seemed like it wasn't complete. As far as the Schedule A, I know we need to kind of determinize on a lot of these roads, probably need to be extended a little bit more. From the,
There he is.
Looks like he just drove up.
Oh,
okay, but the places where he snow plows and kind of does the maintenance, it sounds like there's a bunch of roads that aren't on here that he does do, and we probably should have it in here. And like I said, it's probably more of a conversation with him, just to make sure we kind of get those roads on this list, just so that we can have it covered under this, so that we're all good and dandy. So we kind of wanted to fix that. I kind of wanted to go over maybe some of the roads that he thought that should be on here. Kind of going over Schedule A.
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah,
I was just running a little bit behind.
that's all right. So I was just explaining that if you went through this list and you got some roads in here that you maintain, aka snowplow, beyond what's on this list, I'd like to clean this up.
I was just thinking that. I was looking through it this morning. I'd like to clean it up too. It's one of them deals where over the last 3 or 4 years we've added a whole bunch for some of these projects, and
Yep.
we'd like to clean those back too. But so
Yeah.
maybe we should spend some time and work on it. Is there any projects coming up this year?
I was gonna explain that too, but I was just gonna make sure we get together and kind of clean this up. I know there's places that Nate said you guys snowplow, and it's beyond some of these termini, and he just said get with you and clean it up, and we can
Okay.
do that at another time. We won't sign this today,
Sure.
but yeah, that might be a couple emails, phone calls.
Okay.
As far as projects go, the ones that we have kind of current are the Sunrise Culverts that Haskins did last year.
Mhm.
It sounds like all that money's kind of been spent, but we kind of want to keep that open in case something else comes up for the fire. That might come down.
Sure.
The Camel's Hump Highway, the slumping that Haskins also did, we kind of want to keep that open. It sounds like the money's been spent in that one as well. So we got those 2 projects. The Cedar Creek Road reconstruction, which is the gravel,
Mhm.
from what I believe, and they said that's mostly spent as well. Is that holding in there? I haven't quite seen it since.
Yeah, it needs to be. It's up to time to get bladed, but
Yeah. And the one that I have that has money on it is the Route of the Olympian. There's about $2,000 worth of brushing to do, and that'd be through Tom Stevens. Is that still correct?
yeah.
Okay. And then as far as else as that goes, I don't think there's anything else that I am aware of as far as projects go.
No new projects this year.
I don't see anything coming up unless you and I want to talk about some signing on the Route of the Olympian. Maybe digging some holes and putting some signposts in. That was just an idea. Our rec shop kind of needs some signing, and it's kind of a weird contract issue for us.
What about the Dry Creek Road? I mean, I talked to you, I don't know if I talked to you last year. I talked to Nate. I know it really sloughed off last year, and that's one of the Forest Service roads that, under our maintenance. I was hoping that he could come up with some kind of project to rebuild that first, or at least maybe that even a first mile, going across the flat there at the top, and it drops down. There's some really bad frost heaves, but up on top, that whole area is really saturated. Mike came out and looked at it last year with me,
Okay, he mentioned to me something.
and it's just a mess in there.
Okay.
So
Is that then just past the Black Bear, or what are you talking about?
that's right above Gulls there, right past the cattle guard, beyond in that first quarter mile.
Oh,
that
okay,
really
right.
sloughs off
Got
really
it.
bad.
Yeah, that's pretty wet in there.
It is, and that's the problem. Is there's a lot of moisture, and the whole area is saturated. And I know they've done project after project to try to capture that moisture, but it's not.
And that's
not
within
working.
the Schedule A?
What's that?
That road segment?
That road segment is Schedule A. Yeah.
Is it? Okay, good. And then, certain areas like that, if that wasn't in the Schedule A, that we could throw that in here. So, I'll write that one down, and we can go up there. Is it accessible right now? We can look at it?
Yes.
Yeah, we could look at it. Here's a picture of it, and I don't know if you know Dry Creek Road. That's right at the top there.
That's it right now?
No, that was it last spring.
Oh.
It just over one weekend, it just totally almost fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
It was like 2 feet. Where that crack was. It was a 2-foot drop.
So there's clay in it.
Yeah, and like I said, everything's just saturated. Every spring, it's just a mess. So that's what I was talking. I did mention to Nate about putting together some kind of project for that section.
We did that last year on a road over.
You might have to
on
tap
Tin
it,
Plains.
Denley.
Yeah. This one went down 6 feet.
No, really, yeah. And this one does every year. It goes down some, and we fill it and patch it, and
Do you feel it?
yeah. And
Oh, wow.
Okay, no, that's a good one.
but last year was It was a pretty good one.
Well, I might end up doing it again too.
Yeah,
You know,
it
we'll fix
will
on it,
somewhat.
Keep patching it.
Yeah, it's just been
It has,
over and over and over.
20 years, it's done this every year. I mean, it's
Good.
never.
That water runs out of
Hadn't been
the
some
sewer
big
there.
four-wheeler driving up and down that.
What's that?
So it hadn't been some big four-wheel drive driving up and down that.
No, yeah, no.
Okay, so I'll keep in contact with you and, yeah, let's discuss this. And the only other thing I was gonna mention is, the logging that we kinda have going on. The 1 and 7 meg, which is that Tamarack Road, it will be on us to maintain that road. So you don't have to put a blade on there. I'm gonna make sure that gets hit as soon as it's dry enough.
Yeah, I've been kind of talking to Andrew. I've been up there every day looking at it. And right now, it's just
It's wet.
we're just gonna have to let it dry. I think if we were to break into it now, it's just gonna turn to soup.
Yeah.
There'd be nothing. So
And we do plan on dust abating it too.
and okay, because we do dust abate that. We have dust abated up from the corner to the cattle guard.
Well, it should
That
be-
section.
It should be on us, yeah, because
Okay.
we're hauling a lot out.
Well, that'd be
there.
fine.
Yep. So I wanted to let you know that, and then Sunrise obviously is gonna start coming down with our first party sales. I don't know when it's gonna get sold. Seems like that day keeps getting moved, but,
Yeah.
so Sunrise Road, and then, what's the other road that's up there?
Meadow Creek or something. Birdie.
Birdie.
Birdie. Those two main ones for right now. And so that'll be coming. I'll make sure I get a hold of you when that
Okay.
logging starts getting done, and even road work.
What about Dry Creek? Are they done up there, or they still got more up there?
They still have some more, not a lot, but they have cleanup, just from winter, and there's still at least one unit skyline to complete
Oh, gotcha.
up there. So a little bit more.
I see they pulled out. They must pull off because of snow or something.
Yeah, they were just fighting so much snow that,
Gotcha.
What about camouflage, Carol? Are they gonna do anything on it soon?
they will, they completed some tractor up there above Carol
Yeah,
and
looks
Steve
good,
Young's.
too.
Yeah, that's what, it does look good. And they're just pulled off on the tractor due to soft soils right now.
But isn't there some line units right on the main road?
There is up there, and I haven't heard when they're gonna free up a line machine to get in there.
Probably wait till after breakup now, I would think.
I'm thinking to mobilize equipment.
Well, it's good to see some logging going on anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They still have 4 line machines working up in Tamarack, and they're hauling, waiting until it tightens up as best they can to bring it down, so.
Yeah. I talk to Angela every day or other day, so.
Yeah, now that there isn't hardly enough frost in the morning to firm it up very
Well,
long.
when are they gonna haul out of your place?
He's already
One.
Or on it?
They
I'm
hauled-
sorry.
hauled 3 loads out
Didn't they?
already, yeah.
That's another one we need to watch. That road's getting pretty soft, so.
Yeah, he hauled out early.
Does that Dan Fowler?
Yeah,
Okay. Who's hauling?
Craig.
Craig, okay.
But yeah, he's just kind of watching it, and I think there's probably only 2 more to go. But Irma's still got a bunch of that,
I see that, yeah.
and I don't know what the plan is there.
Well, they're hauling with that little truck, aren't they, there, or?
Well, but I don't know if Tricon's gonna take the stuff. That's why I say I don't quite know
Oh.
what's gonna happen.
Gotcha.
I passed log and truck this morning on my frontage road out there, so either somebody's, I think Weyerhaeuser may be doing some logging or.
Well, they're logging down at
private
Henson's.
too.
Henson's logged all their property,
Oh,
so they'll be hauling that stuff out of there, or they
Yeah.
have been hauling that stuff out of there.
Yeah, I don't know where this one was going, but there is, I hear saws working out there occasionally, so.
Yeah, they did a bunch down there at Henson's. I was surprised.
But I think there's some private up there, maybe in Sunrise,
Oh.
because I hear activity up in that area as well. So, anything else, Jerry?
No, if Jason had anything else, I would.
No, I'm all about getting together and cleaning up that Schedule A for sure, so.
Okay, well, I'll just get with him.
Okay. Yeah.
We need to bog down the time now.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jerry.
yeah.
So, I guess I could just go with a couple other things that I have from Superior, and then Erin can follow me. Say, we still have some line sides going up in Tamarack, but the tractor sides are shut down due to soft soils right now. We do know that Thompson River Lumber is looking at starting road work up in the Cedar Creek Sale, the Barber and Cedar South this summer. So, in talking to Sean Morgan yesterday, that's still their plan, so we could see some activity up in the Cedar Creek area starting to go. We are looking at plowing, doing some plowing into some of our burn units just to get access and so that we could start getting some black line. We've got a lot of activity fuels that we need to, if we get a good burn window, both on some of the toboggan units in the west end and some of these West Trout units. We still have some out here from up in the Thompson Creek area to do, so those would be the areas that we're trying to get into and get those cleaned up. April 1st, we'll have some of our seasonal workforce starting to arrive and kind of starting to kick into burning. We're starting to get people back onto Sunrise as far as working on some of those units there. They're getting GPSing, finishing up some layout and that sort of thing there. A couple other things is, I don't have too much information on it yet, but I do believe we might see some mining activity this summer up in the Cedar Creek drainage. And some of you may know Marlene Affeld from St. Regis has been in the mining business for a long time, has a number of claims up in Cedar Creek, and she has presented a plan of operations, and we've just asked her to, it was pretty broad-based, and we've asked her to kind of refine that, working with Scott Gerwe, the geologist that serves the Flathead, the Bitterroot, and the Lolo, and like what do you really want to do this year instead of just here's a big plan. But it looks like, they have a pretty big plan of operations, and that is Cedar Creek is also a critical bull trout watershed, so we'll be navigating that as we go. But it looks like I was told yesterday that they may be going in on some snowmobiles just to start to look at some exploratory things, and so.
on the main Cedar Creek or?
up there in the big flat area and is one of the areas, but they've got claims all through that area. More to come on that, but I do believe we're gonna see some activity in there this summer. Tim on Thompson Peak, I think Robin Germain, our lands person's been working with you on that.
Yeah,
How's she?
I started that construction form and thought I had sent it back. I sent it out to our TV consultant, but I guess we didn't get back to us really redefining that. But our little holdup right now, other than this, we want to assault the mountain in some kind of snow vehicle, is we need the directions for the guide wires up there with the GPS, and I don't know if we can say we can get that later or not.
I think we'll have to, because it'd be difficult right now to get that.
And I'm telling the guy from Spokane is going to be working with it. Let's see if we can kind of maneuver around that one, because he needs to, it's supposed to have the directional of the 380. Do you know, on the old bases up there's 3 towers up there in the old base. Do you have a sense that you might be able to just reclaim those sites and not pull all those cement out of there?
I think we probably can, because that would be, I'll work with Robin on that, and I think we could probably do something.
Okay.
Just pulling that.
Our consultant has filled in most of the information we can to that, but we talked yesterday, because we're stuck at that point if we need that information. But he said he can bring his snow machine over and try to do that.
Okay. And then we're ready to go with our firewood gates, and we'll be getting that out in the paper. I thought we would have it, but one of the areas that we're interested in opening up for firewood is the Lookout Pass electronic site area, because the site users have complained about all the dead lodgepole that keeps coming down across the access road up there, and they're constantly having to do saw work to get in and out of there. And Robin Germain is in the process, she's our realty person, of notifying all the ComSite users that we're going to open that road for firewooding. And we just want to make sure that they've been notified before we put a piece out in the paper. So Robin's following up with the site users, and as soon as she's heard back from them, then we will get our piece in the paper and get that out.
Hey, Carol, do you know, is there a mixture of federal communication and private communication up there? I think there's one that used private.
There is, yeah, there is. Mm-hmm.
We finally got in there and mapped that, and majority of those towers, I mean, maybe they're supposed to be on the thing, but I think most of them are on the Montana side.
Yes, they are, most of them on the Montana side.
I told the Department of Revenue that.
And there's some good-sized buildings up there.
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing that says stuff there for the view on.
Interesting.
But I didn't know until we put the GIS maps to it and said that right here.
You know, because like the building that was originally built by AT&T, now that's still privately owned, and that is a large structure up there, and it's a good building.
Yeah. And I think there's this sort of misperception that everything up there is federal.
Yeah, no, it's a mixture of private and federal. The other thing that I wanted to mention is during the Sunrise Fire, the Superior Rural was accessing over in Bricker's pasture ground there, and the heavy engine went through the bridge that goes between their two meadows there. And Rob Torrey, who was the fire chief at that time, made a commitment that the rural would pay for replacing the bridge. And it's been brought to my attention by Jim Ward that that commitment now is, since Rob has moved on, is maybe not going to be followed up with. And so,
Sorry to interrupt. Steve Temple's at the council meeting Monday night. He's fully committed to it.
he is?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
So, but he had two different entities giving bids for the bridge and stuff, and they don't know where it's gonna fit into their funding mechanism, or whether insurance might kick in, or, you know, but, and we'd like to try to figure out some kind of parking onto it, but Steve is back there following up on it.
That is excellent, because somebody had dropped off an invoice estimate from Brandex Construction, which is Brandon Simpkins, and he gave an estimate of what he would charge to replace it, however he was going to do it. And I'm certain there's probably others that are
I think he did too.
getting
But
to.
his point to the council was that the bridge wasn't in new condition when they went over it, and the landowner maybe should have some buy-in that it's not all the district's cost to replace that bridge, because it wasn't in new condition, and they're gonna get a brand new condition, because it's gonna be the pillars on up, full deck or something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, the dilemma that we were in talking to Jim Ward, was that the rural fire engine, they were not signed up on the fire at that time, and so to submit a tort claim to the fire would be difficult, because that piece of equipment was not assigned to the fire.
Yeah, and that probably, after the meeting in Superior, I was at the town council meeting, and that's when I called your office and ended up talking to Lori. And I was the one that expressed the concern that if they were acting officially on the fire, that it should have been the incident team paying for the bridge. And so that's probably when, I don't know if Lori talked to you or if she talked to Jim this week.
Yeah.
And so that came up, because, it partly was because the question, the fire department wasn't sure if their insurance was gonna cover it. But I thought it needed to be at least checked into from the incident standpoint of whether there's a responsibility that the Forest Service should have been paid for it. And I wasn't getting into whether it's a new bridge or it was a used bridge, but I just thought the responsibility, if they were acting officially. Now, you're kind of almost saying that they weren't officially signed on, they were almost acting on their own.
In talking to Jim Ward, and I asked him to research that a little bit, and Erin weigh in if you know differently, but Jim said at that time, that piece of equipment was not signed up with an E number to the fire.
Yeah, it's my recollection too when it happened. I believe Rob and I had a quick check-in about that too.
Well, that changes my thought on it.
Yeah.
There is a responsibility that the fire department has, so.
Yeah, that wasn't sure.
So that, like I said, that was my concern when I called your office the day after the city had their meeting, was just, are they really responsible? Well, hearing that, I guess it's the fire department's problem.
And anybody has the right to file a tort claim against the federal government, and all tort claims go to the Albuquerque Claims Center. And, you don't know when those are even, you get in line, so you don't know what the time frame would be that someone's going to be able to look at that. And
They could possibly try it after the fact, couldn't they, if they once proceed and get the bridge fixed, and then just turn in a claim afterwards and say,
Yeah.
We'd like to get reimbursed if we can.
Yeah, I don't think there's any harm in that. The problem that I understand, because I haven't been through it obviously, is there's a big burden of proof on the proponent to show that there was some gross negligence on behalf of the government. So that's that part that this one would probably be a difficult battle, but that's always.
But if they had, maybe in a conversation they had that morning in a briefing or something, somebody said, well, we need to get you out there, and there was an oversight on getting the vehicle signed up too, so. It might be worth the fire departments trying, but the way it sounds, bottom line is they were acting on their own, kind of.
Yeah, I just don't know, but that's what, had
Okay.
Jim look, and he said that piece of equipment was not signed up at the time
Well,
to the fire.
I say, to me, that changes the question. Okay, that,
So that's kind of my district update. So Erin, you want to lead in with your district?
Sure. So I've mentioned it, I know, to Lori a few different times. Fish Creek Milepost 14, that's the big one that I'm trying to make sure everybody's aware of. Doing the reroute on that section. It's the section of Fish Creek that constantly gets flooded and washed out. So it's a fairly large project. Trident Unlimited's going to be our like on the ground kind of contact. Working with DNRC since it's through their parcel land, but it's a Forest Service right away. And so it'll be, blasting rock, moving the whole road over, and then restoring the stream bed. So it's a pretty big project. Working on the permitting right now. Anticipate hopefully starting beginning of July, earlier if we get the permits in place, but anticipating the beginning of July. And worst case scenario is that portion of Fish Creek could be closed for up to 3 weeks. Talking with Nate, that's not super likely, but I just asked them to give me a worst case scenario so we could start prepping people. If that happens, they'll have to go around. The intent is to get the road segment done first, since that was the part that requires closure, and then work on the stream bed stuff so that it's all in place before hunting season begins. So with that, we're going to be doing some heavy signing and stuff on both sides of Fish Creek, trying to get people to go up Petty Creek if they need to. And then still have some availability to get through there for emergency traffic, because that's going to be right into our fire season also.
is that the right-hand corner with the big rock place on the right?
Yeah.
As you're going up?
Yeah, and the blasting part's going to be interesting, talking to the engineers, because it's not like you can't get to it from the top or anything. You have to blast sideways. So, and I don't think that people use explosives like they used to. So, I'm learning about this stuff at the same time. It'll be interesting out there. But I think people have been talking about it. The records go back 20 plus years, so it's good we're finally getting a fix on it. And that came from, what was it, FTP funding, do you remember? Federal, yeah, it's an outside funding source, which is good for a federal funding source, but $80,000 to put into that project. And then on that note too, Petty Creek, we're finishing up a stream bank restoration as part of the Federal Highways project when they paved it. This is kind of like the last use of that money. So it could impact traffic there. I know that portion's in Missoula County, but just so you guys are aware, probably around the same time frame, July-ish, but it would probably just limit it to one lane for a short amount of time. And then moving into prescribed burning, I know I've mentioned it a little bit. We've got some units down in Owl Creek and Montana Creek, post-harvest burning down there. Those are the only ones really in Middle County. The rest of them are in Missoula, but quite a few of our bigger units are in Petty Creek area. So on the east side of Petty Creek, but still could be pretty visible from here. And hopefully, we'll see. It's quickly defrosting out there, so we'll see what happens. But that's where most of our activity is. And then Clearwater Crossing, I'd still like to take a field trip out there one of these days. Earlier this week, some of my staff tried to get out there and they had to put 4 chains on and almost got stuck. The road's pretty rough right now. But they're finishing up the bunkhouse, and then we got the designs for the tool shed / classroom portion. So hoping to get that started this year. It'll be phased as well based on funding. So doing some foundation work hopefully this year, and then keeping it going. And that's, oh yeah.
Just, I documented the sewer and did all of that, but where that sewer ended up was not quite where I wanted it, but anyway, it's awfully close to the road, and I think it's gonna T-post it, kind of do the outline of it and stuff, but
Yeah.
before people get up there in trailers and stuff, it probably would be a bad idea, because it ended up real close and parallel to the road.
Okay, yeah, good heads up. Okay. And then other than that, I think it was more just salvage mushrooms and MOUs.
Back to the Fish Creek deal. So that's the worst case scenario. You're not
Yes.
saying it is gonna be closed.
Correct, yeah.
Because, I mean, there's, you know how much traffic is on there
Oh,
in the
yeah.
summertime to them campgrounds above.
Yep.
I mean, it's gonna take a lot of advertising and to give people a heads up that there's gonna be many. I was quite surprised a few years ago, my wife and I took our camper up there and stayed in Bear Creek, and I couldn't believe how much traffic there was in the summertime.
Yeah, and a lot of it's not necessarily local either, so it's gonna
Yeah.
be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. So then I just asked him, like, give me, worst case scenario, so I can kind of try planning on that. But, Nate was optimistic that there'll be ways to, like, have short impacts on traffic, like, hours here and there, and then kind of try to keep the lane open. Because not just the recreation traffic, but I'm still a little bit gun shy from last season, just
yeah,
fire
yeah, that's
traffic.
true, yeah.
So-
Just close it and say nobody's driving on
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted as I know more. I think they'll have a better sense too when they get the.
I'm glad that's
contractor.
finally getting fixed.
Me too, yeah. So for mushrooms, the region, put out a scoping letter March 12th. So they wanted to scope on all the commercial mushroom permits across the region. And so most of those are on the low. Like we've mentioned before, Sunrise, Rice Ridge, a portion of that, Sheep Gap and Goat Creek. And then the Kootenai has portions of Caribou and Deep Creek, and then all of their West Fork Fire. And then Moose Peak, which crossed Lolo and Kootenai, there's a portion of that. So this is a pretty quick scoping period because we're anticipating mushrooms could start popping up anytime, being in mid-April. So the comments are due at the end of March, and we're looking to start making permits available April 16th. The biggest thing I wanted to touch on in relation to Sunrise here was that they kind of changed it a little bit to make it consistent. Before, I think we've been saying that if you're going to pick mushrooms on the national forest, even if it's incidental, you need a permit. They changed in here, at least for the scoping, that said no permit is required for collecting up to 5 gallons per person. That's that incidental use. So above 5 gallons, you have to get a personal use, but up to 5, you don't. And, that's subject to change because it's a scoping, but I just kind of wanted to put that on your radar.
And that's a free use permit anyway, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The main reason we talked about requiring a permit was just kind of an education thing for law enforcement to track. They were recommending that because it makes it a little bit easier for them to kind of keep tabs on what's going on.
And then if you have people coming in for permits, you can explain up through here is private ground in the bottom, and make sure that you get beyond, just so that you can give people a little bit more information. But
So if there's any particular areas of concern on Sunrise for you guys or anything, I know we've talked about where to locate some dumpsters and porta potties to try to limit impacts on private property. They didn't talk about closure orders in here, but we've still been talking about doing that kind of nighttime closure order on Sunrise. So like from a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. closure, just to discourage dispersed camping out there and to limit, hopefully, impacts on private property, since a lot of the access roads go through private property. If there's anything else that you guys could think of or that you hear about to help limit those impacts, just let us know.
the eastbound loop on Quartz Campground will be the designated spot for mushroom camping. So if people are going to camp and need to camp on National Forest, that's where you're going to need to be camping. So in that loop, there's about 27 or 28 sites. So I'm thinking that should probably take care of those that need to camp. And we can expand that if necessary.
Those are paid sites.
They're paid sites, but for mushroom camping, we won't be charging people to camp there. That's just.
I'd rather have them camping there than
In the woods.
Yeah, and
They'll be pulled off the side of the road in their VW buses anyway, because we went up to the Copper King picking last year and it was insane.
Yeah, it'll be an adventure.
They come from Washington and it's insane.
we are expecting that the Superior office here might be really pretty busy just because of the access off of the interstate, and Sunrise as well, just because of being pretty close to get to the fire area. It's pretty easy on, easy off, so we're going to be gearing up with some additional front office staffing to assist with that.
And I think I mentioned it at the coalition meeting too, but, or maybe it was the last commissioner meeting, that we're going to bring on a detailer, a law enforcement detailer from elsewhere in the region to help just for the West Zone, knowing that we're probably going to have a lot of traffic.
And it sounded like, you know, with Mike Boone and our law enforcement, that they've been communicating quite well. Needs and looking at what issues they might be having and trying to gear up for that.
So I think that's all I had for the mushroom thing. For Sunrise, we're working on compiling the specialist reports, the effects analysis into the environmental assessment. Like Roman and Lori heard a little bit yesterday, anticipating the release of the environmental assessment in mid-April, I believe is what we said. And for a 30-day comment period, and then moving to a regular decision. And at the same time, GSD is supposed to go in roughly the same time. So that would allow us to basically, at the end of the comment period, issue the decision and move immediately into implementation. Good news, and nothing unexpected or no huge red flags came out of the specialist report, which is really good. So moving pretty smoothly through that process. And then Rice Ridge is
Has a lot of peony species and that sort of thing that they're really dealing with. So Sunrise, I mean, we anticipated from the beginning that would probably be not a lot of sensitive issues, and the specialists didn't come up with anything. So pretty straightforward project, so moving right along with that. The only other thing that I have is Erin and I are continuing to work with, and we haven't made quite as much progress as we had hoped, but we're as to how we're going to get an agreement put together, like with the planning office, prior to going into this year's fire season. And I have a call into Tracy Nimlos, who is the regional incident business specialist, to see how we might craft an agreement. And I've talked to Martha Smith, who has retired as the DES coordinator.
State, yeah.
And Martha had so much experience working with all of the counties and that sort of thing. And one of the things that she wanted to make sure that we bring up to Tracy is that in the small rural counties such as Monroe, that Tim and his office also serve as the county sanitarian, not just a planning office. And so Martha wanted to make sure that we emphasized that when Tim and his staff are pulled away to provide mapping and whatever information to the fire teams, then that also takes them away from their sanitary and other duties that they have. And in the larger counties, those duties aren't always shared. So that's an impact that we want to make sure that we cover. And so that was good advice from Martha. So as soon as we can get a hold of Tracy, she's out of the office, won't be back until Monday, but we're trying to get something crafted, and we're working with grants and agreements on the forest. And so I'm pretty positive by next meeting we'll have something to share with you.
Yeah, at least drafted. And we did get a copy of the agreement that you guys have in place between the Sheriff Department and the Forest Service that was renewed this year in January. And so it kind of provides a good, in my mind, a good like kind of framework that we can bounce off of. And some of those as part of that, so this is a cooperative agreement, and then they have an annual operating plan and financial plan too. And so I'm assuming that's kind of the direction we'll be going with this, but some of the things that Carol and I have been thinking about is what are those pretty regular tasks that we pull from you guys, or that information that we pull from you guys, so like the GIS support, that kind of thing, because, you know, it has it framed up like the county department shall, you know, provide X, Y, and Z information or this kind of support. So, you know, just drawing from last year, we've got a list going from those duties, but if there's something in particular, and I can work with Tim on that too, that we want to go ahead and start like listing out, we can do that just to kind of get a jump on it too.
Yep.
Well, I know, you know, when they needed that approach built for the fire camp, they gave me task order number to give to Jason, and he gave him that and got paid, you know, so had I known that, I'd have given it to Tim, and he could have used that number to maybe got paid for his stuff.
One thing we should talk about at some point too is, you know, last year when they moved helicopters in and they needed us to go mow and stuff, I was thinking this year maybe we could talk to Dave and get some spray and spray that area where the helicopters land and just kill everything, then we don't have to monkey with it. I mean, they wanted us to mow it, but there really wasn't quite enough to mow. I mean, it was kind of,
Right.
it was just to say we tried, you know, basically. But I think we could kill most of that stuff out there on that end, and then it'd always be ready, you know. I know that'd be worth the time.
Well, I
Kill
think,
the
was it,
purple cloud?
didn't Tim or Steve Temple talk about maybe, I don't know, through the airport grants or whatever, fixing that area?
I thought he
for
talked about
helicopter-
building helipads too,
helipads out
but if
there,
that,
so-
I mean, if that doesn't happen, it might be something we talk about is spraying that area just. And you could even spray it like down the road so it doesn't get all grown over either, you know, because we built that gravel road in there and now that it doesn't get used enough. Now the weeds they come through it, so it might be worth our time to prep that a little bit beforehand.
And the only other thing that I have to share is at the next collaborative meeting on April 3rd, Jerry Drury from the regional office has committed to be here, and he's going to talk about secure rural schools, PILT payments, and those sort of things that there's been so many questions on. And so anybody that has interest, especially for you folks as Board of Commissioners, if you can be available, Jerry,
What's the date on that?
April 3rd. And he'll be here and will give a presentation and answer questions as best he can. So, hi Jeff. So with that, I guess we probably should look at scheduling our next meeting with you folks.
I had a quick question, Carol, about
Okay.
did you guys get all the right-of-way and easements that you needed for the route of the Olympian? How's that going?
We still have some parcels to get. There is one, we don't have access through 2 Mile. I mean, through there's the Wolf property. We don't have access through there. And of course, the Salties Trestle, which is owned by the Snowmobile Club. You know, that's still looking at, you know, possibly something through federal highways or whatever. So we've got to get gathered back up on that. Still have a couple pieces.
So, April. What works for you guys?
Erin, do you have the 18th available?
What's that?
That's a
See,
Wednesday.
that's all over the map there.
Yeah. We get 37 cents an acre, and Missoula County gets $2 and
Friday.
5
Yeah.
13th or the
May I
20th?
have a copy? Thank you.
Yeah. Let's
Someone
see,
can get one there.
13th would work.
Lincoln County.
April's, or, Jones and
Are you on April?
Oops, I'm on May.
Friday the 13th?
No, that doesn't work for me.
I could do the 20th also, actually.
The 20th would work for me.
We got about the same.
9 o'clock on the 20th?
Okay.
A little bit more.
You mean Lincoln?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, no, they have 1,700.
Oh,
100 acres.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite good.
We need some BLM land. It looks like it's really valuable.
Yeah.
Well, you can run a cow on every acre of it, even if it takes 15 acres for a cow.
It's been nailed. Facing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Carol.
Yes, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson that's here was my very first supervisor back in 1971.
Wow.
I'm not that old. Must have been a good teacher.
Start our 10 o'clock here. I guess when Lori, you were at the Mako thing, you thought it'd be good to talk to.
Well, I didn't know when our contract was up with DIS, and First Call asked, and I said, I'm not sure, and maybe schedule an appointment and we'll get everybody together. And do you know when the contract's up?
Yeah, actually, you guys are have been on month to month.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, we appreciate the invitation. We miss
So,
you.
Anyway, that would be a good idea to get an update on everything, and so, anyway.
Okay, so I guess that's why we're here on the agenda. So did you have questions or I didn't. No.
I have questions.
Okay. All right. Well,
So
let's
again,
start.
nice to see you guys. Appreciate the time.
Mhm.
So from a technology standpoint, several years ago, the contract was transitioned primarily due to cost to DIS out of Billings. So, first question is, how is IT going for the county? I can, at a high level, expectations being met, security issues, things along those lines. How's the distance serving the county? Just give me some insight overview.
Mhm. I haven't heard of any issues myself, but
No, usually
maybe
if
if
there's-
Casey was in here, she might.
Yeah,
have
I'll go get Casey.
Yeah.
She's the one that works
Casey's
with
our
it more than.
secretary in HR, and so usually people come with her, to
Okay.
her with things, but Mr. Schultz.
I just have a statement as usual, and then I'll get it out of your hair. With your tax bill to the federal government, if you're really serious about this, I believe you're going to have to go to the news media with it. My feeling is when it's delivered to the Department of Agriculture, it'll go to assistant deputy or whatever, and he'll go, we don't pay these bills, boom. The impact will be lost. I think you're going to need to go to national news media to have them pick up this story. Monty Turner may well know the connectivity, but foxnews.com, UPI, AP, somebody. And I think if you're really serious, you want to have this story made nationwide.
Kim Brigham at the Missoulian wasn't big enough for you?
No. Nobody nationwide picks that up. Yes, it was in the Missouri, it's KPX and the Mineral paper, but that isn't picked up and fed into the national news media at all. And so that was great for local interest, but it isn't going to give you the deal that somebody's going to say, hey, what's going on down there, which is what you wanted, was a wake-up call. And I don't think that's going to cross the, I don't think it's going to cross the river there and get to Washington, D.C. Just my thought, and I'll
Okay.
get out of your hair.
Mr. Schultz? Oh, and by the way, just so Senator Daines delivered it to Mr. Purdue, and he also intended to read it on the floor of the Senate, the letter. So, I mean, it won't be publicly known nationwide, but it will be nationwide known within the chamber. of
That'll
Senate.
help, but I think a lot of people just brush it
Right.
off.
And I'll let you know, Purdue did get it received, and he's supposedly going to be writing a reply letter, so we'll see what it says.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you
That'll
know when I
help.
see you over there at the store.
That'll help. I'm glad to see it did actually reach that level. In most of these cases, they go to a subordinate and they just go, you
Yeah.
know, with it goes in the circular
And
file.
we timed it, Jim, because, you know, they haven't passed a budget or a spending bill. I mean, there's another possible shutdown on the 23rd, so, but if they would actually get a final concrete firmed up budget that would not be a continuing resolution, but a budget for the whole year, then, and SRS and PILT are both being inserted in those by Gianforte and Danes and Tester, so we didn't really necessarily want to make too big of a stink. It was more to get the conversation going while they're discussing the budget and those line items, and then this tax bill comes in, so maybe it'll
I
make
think
them
the
think a
chance
little
of
bit harder
having
on the
having a
budget.
real budget is about like pigs flying. Nobody can agree on what's gonna be in there, where the money's gonna be spent. I don't see how they're gonna do it. They'll give another continuation, just to get that issue off their back.
Okay, well, if they don't pass it again, then maybe we'll ratchet things up a bit.
Okay.
All right. Sorry to detract, but.
No, that's okay.
since Casey's not back, I thought I'd entertain him.
No, that's fine.
Or entertain his idea.
Throwing stuff?
And I forgot your name, Mr. Univision.
Oh, it's Jim Green.
That's right. I remember meeting you before, too.
Oh, yeah. Let me get some business cards out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a phone call, gentlemen, last week. I didn't even know what really I was
Yeah.
walking into here, so.
I wasn't really sure if Lori wanted like full-blown, you know.
Good to see
I don't
you.
think
Good
it's
to see
supposed to be like requests for quotes and stuff, but.
No, I think just a general discovery meeting to check in and see how things are going.
Right. So Casey Connor from First Call had a question that we couldn't
Hi,
quite
Casey.
answer because you probably are more of the operator here at the courthouse with complaints and concerns. So he was wondering if we had any issues with, go ahead, rephrase your question, Connor.
Yeah, so just, structurally in terms of how things are working with IT, between the county and with DIS, if people have an issue, what's happening today? Are you guys doing any self-service stuff, or is everything going to DIS from a issue or help desk standpoint?
There might be one issue, and I'm not sure exactly how he handled it, but if there's an issue, we just call
Okay.
GIS, and they basically handle it or walk us through or whatever needs to be done.
Okay. And in terms of response time and issue resolution and all those things, how's that going?
As far as I can tell, very well.
Okay, good.
Again, there might be one, but
Okay. And then any types of security events or anything along those lines that have been happening?
I don't think so.
Okay. And then from a commissioner or department head standpoint, decisions, how are things being brought up to you guys? Do you feel like you're being guided and equipped to make the decisions you need to make?
We did have a department head just walk in, so what do you think, Mary? Has there been any issue? First Call is
Hi, Mary.
asking how things going for you with DIS.
Well, I don't really have any complaints about DIS, nor did I before we changed with First Call. Probably my only issue would be just the billings, that they're not as close when there is issues, but it's all done over the phone. And heads up when they are coming, so if we did have issues, that's probably, I don't really have any concerns.
Okay.
So.
And from here, we actually do have our Helena office. So if there's something there, that's where it comes out of.
120.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think geography, just candidly, should be the big, decision point, relative to IT. More and more technology is being managed remotely. It's designed to be done that way. You can handle things very quickly. I mean, in our shop, we're handling 90+% of everything remotely. I'm sure that's true for Jim and true for you guys as well. Generally, how IT should be judged is just more in line with, are the number of issues going down or up? Are the severity of issues going down or up? Are there things being done to understand, the county, the needs, and move technology forward, or is it staying status quo? And is risk being managed? Those are the key elements. Cost would be the other, factor. Has there been any changes to the contract? Are there projected changes to the contract?
No one either,
Okay.
including taking on additional responsibilities that weren't originally part of the contract.
Okay. All right. So, any idea in terms of what is being paid today to DIS?
Yeah, can you look that up?
I
please?
could run I can run a report and see what we spent over this budget year.
$18.50 a month is what the managed service cost is.
Okay. And then in terms of the number of devices involved with that?
68 PCs and 6 servers.
Okay. And is that full, including full support and all those types of things as well?
You guys took care, we had that phone problem we first came over.
Well, what happened when you guys' room got flooded?
Oh, yeah.
It wiped
Yeah,
out
that's right.
a lot of equipment.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we handled the phones, the security cameras,
Right.
everything
Okay.
that has ever been in an IT
Yeah.
side.
Right. Well, I don't know about Jim, but I can't touch that.
Mhm.
So if I were you, I'd lock these guys into another 3 years at $18.50 for full support, full coverage, et cetera. Again, that's assuming that's all of the costs, but Jim, how about you?
That's probably not inclusive of project work.
It is, actually.
Is it $18.50 a month?
We get
I know.
unlimited support.
Unlimited and total project?
It's a hell of a business.
Like I said, I got a phone call. This is
Yeah.
confusing to me.
Honestly, commissioners, I would look for a long-term contract and I would lock that in. You're not going to beat that in the marketplace. Typically, our experience with them is that they undercut the market significantly a few years ago. I would assume then they're going back and right-sizing those contracts, win the business, and then turn it around in future years. But if they're willing to commit to that $18.50 for a longer period of time, you're not going to get anywhere near that.
Right.
Is that fair, Jim?
I can't touch that.
I can't stay in business doing that.
Yeah.
So
And
you guys need a pay raise.
like I say, this is kind of confusing to me. I just got a phone call. When does the contract, but since the door is open, when's the contract expire? Are you going to go out for an RFP or?
Yeah, well, that's what, when I was at convention, what her name is.
Brandy.
Yeah, anyway, she asked how things were going, and I said, well, really good. And so she asked when the contract was up, and I said, well, I wasn't for sure, but I would check, and, it might be a conversation, if you guys everybody wanted to come down and.
Right. No,
See what
and again,
was
we do
going on,
appreciate the conversation, and again, the way I would phrase it, that's a perfect girlfriend, marry her.
But if the door is open, if I could find out when the contract's up.
Contract, like I said.
Contract's up, like I said, with.
Just a
right
30-day
now,
out.
we're just
Oh, it's
doing
30
a
it's
day-
monthly.
Month right now, so.
Yeah.
And I said, at the time, I wasn't sure when I was pretty sure it was up, but, wasn't sure,
Right. Yeah, again, if that is everything that he says it is, and it would be worth, if you do an RFP and just open it up, what are the services being provided, black and white, and just generally ask for pricing, versus a lot of detail relative to these services. But again, I think you're going to find that that's untouchable.
And really, from managed services, I'm sure Connor and Jim will both agree, there's only, managed service contracts are basically the same regardless of who they're with. Services provided. There's areas of expertise that every company brings.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that a bit. I mean, I think everybody can define managed services however they want. I do it differently than Jim does it, so on and so forth. Some people are including antivirus, firewalls, backups, other types of
Right.
security services associated with it. Some people exclude that.
I was talking more
But
from a.
any way you cut it, if it includes full support and project type work, even small project type of work, that's untouchable. I don't know how you guys are making money, but
I don't
my
believe
hat's
it.
off to you.
And since the door's open, and it was asked, can I obtain total amount?
We're trying to get her to,
Okay.
Casey's gonna try to run the total payments.
The
I
hardware's
mean,
separate though.
Huh?
The hardware's separate. We're not providing hardware at that
No,
cost.
no,
just
but even
labor?
just,
So
even services.
our labor and our help desk and doing the
Guy,
regular work.
we're both
Right.
in the same national business group of MSPs, the Taylor Business Group.
And we're-
Hey, you'd be a millionaire if you join our group and tell us what that secret sauce is. That's unbelievable. If it's true, stay with it.
Yeah, no,
It's
Some-
very true. I
But
wouldn't
I'm
say-
tilting here. So,
yeah.
The-
No, perfect girlfriend, marry her.
We provide our labor. The labor is
Uh-huh.
there. And then if there's any devices that need to be replaced, we'll replace them. But the hardware and stuff is not included, and we don't include antivirus.
Right.
So that's the other part of it. The antivirus is separate.
you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's, and I didn't know what I was coming into here, but being honest here, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you guys have that
Yeah,
silo that our minutes.
Yeah,
that are-
that's a different part though. That's
Yeah.
not part of the IT side.
Uh-huh.
That's the document management side of
Right.
the business. Yeah.
Okay.
It's-
Well, it's good to see you guys. It's always a pleasure to come to Superior.
Yeah, I bet.
And I don't want to, I honestly don't want to, waste your guys' time. If things ever change, sounds like you're getting a good service at an unbelievable price, lock it in.
Well, we'll, when she
And
finally
if-
can get the numbers.
if you
if
can't
there's
lock
any
it in,
errors on it, we'll.
Call Jim and I and at least get some other bids.
Well, yeah.
Are those physical servers or virtual servers?
Most of them are physical. There's only one virtualized one here.
You're knocking it out of the park, guy. I want to come to work with you and find out what your secret sauce is. So,
We believe in a long-term relationship. We have not raised our prices in the whole time we've been in contract with them. And then, we just believe in that side of it. And I think once you get the performance working, it's.
And are you doing the all work side of things too? Have you engaged them on the Connect servers at all yet?
Matt is responsible
Yeah.
for the connect.
I would just on your guys' end, so Allworks has replaced both their handsets and their servers. There's really nothing immediate you need to do with the handsets. But on the server side, there's what they call the trade-in program. And so you can get that technology for 50% of what it would be new just by trading in your old server. And you're going to extend the life of even the handsets another 10 years by doing that. So I would definitely put that down as something to engage DIS on and get that done. Just going to make the longevity of the system that we put in years ago that much
That
better
server
for you.
was replaced because it got water damage.
Okay,
It was
okay.
not the Connect server that was before that.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's okay, I'll just use it.
The server itself.
So that one that's miscoded, Casey, I add it to the other one?
Yeah.
Now, does that include everything, all monies distributed to them, not, or is it breaking down any of the, the silo versus the IT versus the?
No, so those will be, you'll see that in, is that the 105? Is that for the?
Silo? Yeah, I'm betting it is, if that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, so all those, under 300,
Mhm.
105, those are for the silo. Those aren't the services.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't know that part of it. That's Matt's side of it.
So, but I'll add the software. We got supplies, software, and then hardware. And start over then. So with the software and the purchase services, it comes out to be, for the whole year, $21.30 a month. So 18.
Yeah, that's still fantastic
Mhm.
for you.
Yeah. I didn't add $81 of supplies and $583 of hardware. What would be an example of that?
You guys just picked up some UPSs. I don't know if that's on there yet, but if there's been anything, it's been on our piece. I don't think you guys have done any computer replacements this year.
I think I ordered some phone cords or something.
Yeah.
too.
So just for fun, I'll take every rock bottom check issued for the year and then divide that by 12 and see that.
That's just up until right now? That should only be 8 months.
This budget year.
Oh, 8 months, okay, all right. Divided by 8, then not 12. Okay, that's $32.50 a month. That's more like it.
It sounds like I'm buying this. Brandy did some excellent marketing, got you an appointment here, and for Verity, Garrett was called. Hey, let's talk to. We're going to first call, and Univision's here. If you're happy, what are we doing here? So, if you're interested, but since I am here and the door's open, if you're interested in a competitive bid, I'd like to take a pass at it. So,
I think you should have competitive bids because I am still not satisfied in the least with the lack of on-site support. And I really think you need to look at somebody in Missoula that's going to get somebody here and are coming to the area doing something like that.
What's your example of on-site support? Are you mean putting together a web page, or what are you referring?
I think he means
my four monitors that CIS could not get put together and things. I had to use Univision to get that accomplished and stuff. And so when they're here, they come out, they get the job done. I think that's an important factor to consider in that, is that having somebody located in Missoula is definitely an aspect that should be considered. If apples are apples and bids are bids, fine, but that's one that can't really be quantified and things. But I know, my understanding is that Univision has worked in Sanders, and so people are up and down the road and stopping by and doing that. It's a factor that should have some consideration in my opinion.
But Josh is the one that came up and got those monitors working. When we put in the computer, we sent Josh.
He was not getting them working. He came up, worked on them, said, "My time is up," and walked out the door, and they were not working.
Did you? I did not know that. If he said that, I do not allow the techs to do
He left
that.
on site, and he says, "We can do this remotely." I believe Lisa worked on it for, I don't know how long, but quite a few hours.
Because anytime there's been something that's on site, we've come on site, including the time the health department went down. And I was actually on the other end of the state. I came from Webo to get here to make sure that could get taken care of. So I don't agree. If a reason, we don't try to come on site if we don't have to. If we can do it remote, we're going to. But if I have a tech here and they're telling you that their time's up and they're not doing it, I need to know about it, because that's not the way we do business, and it's not the way I allow the techs to operate.
How do we know that? How do we know what the contract?
It's nothing to do with the contract, it's customer service. If you're getting a bad customer service experience, I don't care what it's on, whether it's image side or the IT side, we need to know so I can correct
Can you
it.
consult with CJ and other people when they on a project?
Sure, if they come to me, I know if I'm not getting a complaint from the customer, then I don't know there was an issue that's happened, and it's tough for me to address it. Just like having a computer problem and not reporting the problem. How do you fix it? If you have somebody frustrated with a piece of software and they're not calling you to fix it, we have no idea.
I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but I'll be real sensitive about it, and I'll be real critical about it if you want me to explain how the process.
No, I just want to say if there's a problem that you're having with customer service, I need to know.
No,
That was my
I'm just
only
saying
reason.
that it should have been recognized after 2 or 3 people tried to work on it, on your end of it, that it's gonna take somebody on site to get it done.
I apologize if that happened.
Is all your stuff working now, Tim?
Yeah, Sean Langley, is that, he came out here and he had incredible expertise and was able to do that. We should have recognized that I had 3 different age monitors and that the support of those monitors were,
Not matching?
you couldn't supply one set of drivers from the driver world of things to get those monitors to all work. You had to apply this, put it over there, do this and that else. And I was very impressed that one got it done that had back to 4 monitors.
So did you ever make any complaints to him, Tim?
Dwayne, they worked on it for almost a full week period, off and on, for a couple hours a day. I didn't have time to be down that much. I can't sit there and let somebody, take over the computer remotely and try to do that. And we just, for days, we just repeated the same driver processes. When you were here on site and looked at everything and was able to diagnose it, like Sean was able to do, he's like, okay, you got it figured out. I just think it's an example that's,
Where's Sean from? Who's he work for?
Jim's.
Oh,
Okay, I think the reality is that there is around 6 to 10% of issues that are better served on site. And you'll agree with that, that's just fact. And
But somebody's gotta let you know.
proximity helps with that, right?
But we
That-
had to be notified.
I mean,
Well,
if I
and
took my
that's
car and
just-
somebody worked on my
That's,
car.
that's where I'll disagree a
and it
little
wasn't
bit.
fixed, I'd be calling GM or whoever.
I'm gonna get, I ran in, I'm gonna back Garrett on this one a little bit. I ran into situations where, if we don't know about it, that you can't fix it, but.
Okay, so let me just interject on that. So every issue, right, should have quality assurance on it.
Bingo, that's where I was headed, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So if there was quality assurance on it, Tim, did you get the fix that you needed? Did you get the experience that you needed? Then that wouldn't have happened.
But sometimes even that breaks down, and where I was leading up to, and I know you got it, I know I got it, and I suspect you do, and maybe they don't know about it, is a customer portal, so you can keep track of what they're working on. And are you guys using it? I don't
We
know.
have it.
I know you have it. I'm asking
Yeah,
if
once
they- if
it's
they're using
requested.
it. Because you can monitor, how old, it's long it's taking. And on the quality assurance issues and stuff like that, I don't know. You're real low. We got things like TAMs and CAMs. We put somebody in charge of the account. It's their responsibility, not just to wait for the customer to view all open accounts and repeating issues on a particular pieces of machine. I know you guys do it. I think you guys do it too.
We do. That's what I'm saying. This is catching
I
up
think-
work, because the last I knew, Josh was.
And I ran into it too. I think your account manager needs a conversation with you, is what I think is smelling like to me here. And I've had to do it too. And I'm sure you have too, but so, I don't know.
Well, again, bottom line for us is we're significantly more money. And the reason that we're significantly more money is because of the amount of on-site time that we do spend and the amount of quality assurance that we do. That drives cost drives price. So you can get, and it sounds like things are good, right? I don't think, anybody's saying things are bad. Good is one thing, better is another. It's just, are you willing to pay more to get something better? And again, you can open up the RFP process so you get a better picture of what that's like. Again, I don't want to spend the time though if, Mineral County's in good shape. And you know, you've got a good service at a fair price. You know, if that's where you're at, if I were you, I'd lock it in. Because at least from my standpoint, I can't touch that number.
Casey was, the one you said the one issue, was that Tim?
So, and you guys can do a simple survey, you know, the management departments, you know, and it's, again, very, very simple. You know, when you have issues, are they getting resolved? Are you happy with the service? You know, from a security standpoint, you know, the things I would ask you guys is, you know, users don't care about that stuff. They just need to go to work every day. But, you know, can you list out what your gaps are, what you're doing about them, you know? And then just, are you staying abreast of this stuff? My gut is typically in organizations like this that cover all the project services, they have no motivation to move your technology forward because they're locked into the expense if you do. Whereas the way Jim and I operate, we're trying to look at where are you, where do you need to go. Yes, we get paid to do that, but ultimately there's the motivation to do it. So it's not wrong or right, it's just different.
Over the years, I've seen the pricing and models through Taylor Business Group and stuff like that. And we're talking about, I don't know, 500 MSPs across the country that we all meet together. And there's several models. There's the, okay, one price a month, that includes project work, that includes everything, you know, and stuff like that. I think that's what you were just saying, Connor. There's no motivation. You know,
Not at $50 a month per
right,
unit.
to make sure all works have the right stuff and stuff like that. So what I've seen, the model is you know, think of a two stacks of invoices at the end of the year. This one's 12 of them. This is my managed services contract with my IT provider. There's only 12 of them. It's X dollars a month. This stack is the project work of the stuff that's not covered under it, and that's why I was asking, you know, $18.50 a month. What about the project work? You know, what's the total? You know, I know these guys are good, right? They kick my butt on the other side of the state because I'm sitting on the other thing, on the other end of the spectrum of getting a technician over there and stuff like that. I know these guys are good. All of us, you're probably looking at the three, by one definition or the other. You guys are pretty lucky right now. You've got the three oldest, longest term MSPs in the state sitting around your table right
We got the cream
now.
of the crop here today.
Yeah, you do. So this is an interesting dialogue. I'm kind of enjoying it. My interest is, I would like to try, if we can compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, I'd be interested in participating in an RFP.
Connor's not so much, but you are.
He might.
I'd look at it. I just, again, knowing what I know today, one-off issue is one-off issue. If it's systemic, you guys
Right.
got to look at it.
He is right.
But if knowing you guys, having a personal relationship and having lived here for a couple of years, you got a great deal. So lock it in.
Well, I appreciate that, Connor. I mean, people like you wouldn't be so forthright
No,
to
I
say
mean,
that.
the best thing for you guys to do is lock them in, because my gut is it's not such a great deal for them. So lock it in. That'll help me competitively.
You guys are watching.
I hope you didn't just talk him out of that.
Be an anchor on there,
He
would
just
you?
nailed it. That's right. He
Yeah.
just nailed it.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I think Garrett
I
feels
want
more
to know your
emboldened at this
secret
point.
sauce, because based on the Taylor Business Group and stuff like that, if you're doing that with all your customers, how many employees you got?
20
20, they're real full-time employees.
full-time employees, but that covers both sides of the gamut.
Yeah.
So we still have our service bureau that does all the document scanning and stuff for a lot of counties, healthcare.
Okay,
all that
in the
stuff.
IT field,
In the
dedicated
IT
to
side, full-time IT employees, there's 8.
Yeah,
Okay. I got 21 right now. How many you got?
35.
Yeah. To pay somebody to really manage your, I'm going to support you a little bit. I'm supporting you to really manage the account and stuff like that. I'm leaning toward Connor here, you know, and stuff like that. And that's why I'm saying there's something fishy about that low 1850. It's starting to get back in range at 3250. you know,
Wow.
and maybe
But
it's
that's
hard
bringing
to.
on the software and stuff, you'd have that expense too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. The
Three.
software they purchase, I mean, we use, just like anybody else. would
That
use.
3250 is not hardware.
It
There's
includes
some hardware in there,
there's
too.
hardware of 583, supplies 8150, software 10,101, and purchase
Yeah.
services.
For a fair comparison, yeah, it's just the labor we're looking at and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's-
We can all butt heads on
like I said,
pricing
the-
on individual deals and, you know, and stuff like that.
What's the credit mean on the credit side, Casey? So should I subtract that?
No, it should be figured for you already.
Okay. So yeah, so basically the total amount that we paid out for the last 8 months to these folks, I mean, the whole ledger, the bottom line is 26,726 and 1 penny. So I divide that by.
Friendly here, I agree with Connor, because I don't believe he's got the stuff in place for quality assurance. It can't be maintained beyond an entire row of an MSP's entire clientele that cheap and deliver the good service. That's cheap. I don't know how you're doing it. I got called here, it was kind of strange. I'm listening to the stuff in the back about, you know, quality control issues. And so I'm smelling like.
That's one quality control issue.
Yeah, or a issue.
Yeah. That maybe was never, maybe was
Like I
never
said,
reported. I mean,
I'm where the complaints
Yeah.
stop. It's up to
Usually
me.
we've
I
got
agree-
a pretty
I agree
good
with that.
feel.
I
If
agree
something's
with him
not
there,
working
totally.
here, we hear about
It
it.
doesn't
You know,
sound
whether
broken.
it's from him or her or someone else, you know, we usually hear it because people aren't bashful. We're the ones or they come to Casey and Casey makes a phone call to us. But we've been, to my knowledge, we've been very satisfied with DIS.
Yeah. But, yeah, I thank you guys for coming out though.
You bet.
And I hope, wasn't, like you said, I hope you did enjoy the dialogue.
I do. And
Let's all go
keep it
get
up and do
coffee.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I am here. Are you interested in opening it up for an RFP?
Well, I think if we did a survey from the department heads or see, you know, if anybody else has any problems. I don't know about the health department or anything, but
Yeah, we're kind of
You
the,
know,
we're
yeah.
kind of the dumb ones to talk to, Jim, because we really don't,
I'm
we're
not an
only here a
IT
couple days a
person.
week, so why don't you let us talk to everybody and see what they think about it, and then we'll get back to you.
That sounds good.
Oh, you, yeah.
And
And if everybody else is happy except for Tim, then I'll be inclined to let it go, but if we do have a few, say, hey, why don't we revisit this and lock in something? You know, like, I don't know if Garrett's interested in locking
If
this
I-
in for
if-
more
if-
than month to month or not, but we'll
Sure.
let our employees decide, because they're the ones that do it every
They're the
day.
ones.
Connor's right. If you got and it's working and it's successful and you're absolutely sure it is and you're not missing out on something,
Right, right.
and you're getting it that cheap, lock him in on a 1, 2, 3 year
Okay.
contract.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Connor's right. Either he's going to continue to do a stellar performance and work, or 1 or 2 other customers are going to lock into it, and he'll be out of business because he can't pay his employees and stuff like that. If we're right,
Okay,
and time will tell.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, again, both of you guys, thanks for your
Bet.
Yes,
quick.
yeah.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for the information and.
You bet.
Now we're ready to start.
All right, sorry to keep you waiting.
Yeah. So, an update on the Cook property. And then I guess Tim probably was talking about the other Cook property, right? That way you guys maps here. Okay.
Yeah, so I think to maybe frame this, the last time we were here, we talked about the potential acquisition for the Cook property up in Fish Creek. But one part of that was contingent for Randy Cook was that Fish, Wildlife, and Parks also take that piece adjacent to our fishing access site in Superior. And at that meeting, or shortly after, we did hear from Tim that the county had expressed an interest in receiving that property. That was something that you guys had tried to accomplish in the past. We didn't at the time feel that it was a critical piece for our fishing access site, so I went back and made sure on our fishing access site realm that wasn't anything that we might need or was critical for us. We then worked to get back to Randy Cook to make sure I mean, would you be comfortable that it not be a critical part of our acquisition for the Fish Creek parcel? If possible, would you be willing to try to move that towards the county instead? And he was all for that.
Really?
His only interest is that he divested that. He didn't want to have that piece of property anymore. And so whether it was contingent upon our Fish Creek piece, or we could help make that happen in another way, it didn't matter to him. So, at least from our initial conversations with Tim, there had been some complication for how that lot is actually surveyed and how that might work. What we potentially could offer is some help from our end to try to make that happen, if we had some capacity to do some of those things. But I didn't want to commit to that unless I thought we could actually do that. So I brought today the head of our lands division, Darlene Edge, and Darlene's our lands expert for projects, both fishing access sites and state lands and conservation easements, acquisition stuff across our whole state. And so she has a lot of expertise, a lot of irons in the fire, but we count on her to know these difficult pieces, because that's her bailiwick. So Darlene has expressed an interest in helping. She's able to help, but I guess before I asked her to obligate that time, we just wanted to make sure that was the direction that we wanted to go. Because I think that's something that we can do, and I think we'd like to help do that, but there's a lot of complication in how we do that and how we assign some workload and accomplish some of those pieces, and Darlene can speak to more of those things, and then probably learn a little more about what that might take to do that. But we just wanted to make sure that was a piece that you were interested in having, and that our help was going to be necessary for doing that you wanted our help on that.
Yeah, I'll have to defer to Tim on the ins and outs, but you've been kind of eyeing that thing for a while, right, Tim? And you know more about the...
Right. So, I shared a couple things with Darlene, but anyway, the survey, this is the survey for the fishing access site out there where the roads and everything are out there. So this abuts the piece of the section line, whatever, that would come up on the piece out there. So the question becomes that when Stan Koch picked up this property, and when the railroad did all their illegal maneuverings that they did, which I'm still always going to say. Anyway, Stan Koch they obtained that piece of property, and what he did is that it's complicated from the fact that it's the legal description that's used for the Koch property, okay? There was a potential survey for the railroad right-of-way, and then the highway right-of-way comes out of the top of that, and the lines aren't very visible there, but I mean, I can kind of tell you what's going on with the various pieces and show you the so this little piece down here is the question, and that's kind of what Randy's concerned about. And then this is up above the road, and then so then this would be the Bobby Clyde piece. So there's a potential that this railroad right-of-way splits that property in two, but there's also a potential that it doesn't split it in two, in my opinion. I don't know if that little 4/10 of an acre piece really exists or not. By convention, when Bobby Clyde picked up the railroad right-of-way, basically his deed said that he owned everything to the average watermark on the river. And that's how this basically was surveyed, was down there. So whether there's something between Clyde's and the river, the only thing that is definitive is down in there, and so what information and how that is based for the Department of Revenue, I don't know. That's something to be researched to do that, or you could. So there's about 3 options to go on this thing. Connie Koch is the executor of the trust, and we've talked way back when about that piece of property. I didn't really get too concerned about this one, but We even prepared a deed of distribution from the trust to the county for that piece of property. If the deed of distribution, which uses the old legal description for whatever's in government lot 1 in the northwest quarter, it's just a real vague description. If that deed of distribution included both those parcels, then it's a moot point. It's like game over, just take it, and they don't have it anymore. What they're concerned about is that they get a tax bill for this and a tax bill for that. There's two separate tax bills. So, but the Department of Revenue hasn't had any, if this survey would have been filed, this might have disappeared. I don't know. So if we could do it that simple, that would be great. If we don't, then we really need to commission somebody to go out there and survey it to the point of saying, and establishing that there's a piece of ground out there. So would you spend the money to do retracement surveys, or would you just demonstrate that if we take the deed of distribution from the Cook Trust, that we get both those pieces of property and it ends it anyway? So that's kind of where the quick synopsis of where we are with the situation.
So Tim, Bobby owns that piece then back to town there, right?
He owns from that section line clear to into the town like this.
So has he showed interest in wanting to do something with that? I mean,
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that, because that's going to bring up my other sore subject about Five Valleys Land Trust, because Five Valleys Land Trust was going to get that piece of property no matter what for Mineral County for a walking trail, because it's, what's the ideal trail length is 0.5? I said it, it's in your standard. There's an ideal length for whatever it is. From there to the fishing access site, that's the ideal length. It's like a half mile.
Oh, okay.
Not quite a half mile, but it's like the perfect connecting like that. So people trespass over it, they've used it, they walk on it. Lady called me up the other day, she says, what are we gonna do about the dogs pooping all over it? And I go, I don't know, talk to the owner. And she goes, owner? And I go, yeah. You can talk to Bobby Clyde, he can weigh in on it. But so we've been trying to get that. We did a trails, or Five Valleys Land Trust did a trails, but it was contingent on the Tin Can Alley property out at St. Regis. When we're doing that. So it was going to be a 3-way, 4-way trade. Bobby Clyde wanted part of the hill up there. Bobby Clyde was going to give us this. We talked to him about a tax incentive. We talked about the trail program. We were trying to, the parks fund for the town and for the thing. We were trying to pull it all together there. And Greg indicated to me that all of a sudden that became the gold mine of the West for property value, and Bobby wanted a lot of money about it. Or that's one way to look at it. What Bobby wanted was a great big piece of the hilltop out there, and Five Valleys wasn't going to give him that whole big round top over there for that piece of property. So that's kind of the past of it, of how it went. Yes, I think he's willing to sell it. I've contemplated for a couple of years to just simply write him a letter and said that Town of Superior, Mineral County is interested in purchasing that property. What would you sell it for, so we could get its basis just to start on it and try to figure it out. So.
Yeah, that's kind of where I didn't know what good that little piece of property would do us if we can't have a trail on the rest of it.
Yeah.
We got the trail anyway.
So I've talked to Janie Eby a couple times. I thought we should have, since Bobby Clyde's is technically an unsurveyed lot, or tract of land, it was just a deed description of when Chicago and Milwaukee dispersed their properties and do that. They got into a real whatever with Herman Bernanke up there on the top like that. The survey pushed right into his yard and his garden and his orchard and everything, and Rocky Mountain said, well, that belongs to the railroad, and Herman's like, oh, no, it don't. And anyway, he lawyered up even right on that, so they just never filed that survey. They weren't going to fight it out, but it kind of stands to reason that is railroad property, because what he's claiming is the old grade for the railroad where the two bridges, or the bridge connected and everything else. And it's like, sorry, Charlie, you really don't own something that used to have rail trains go over the top of it. But so from that point, it would be nice to get that whole thing cleaned up at a point in time that we knew if we were going to proceed and try to get that for public property and a trail, just to kind of get everything cleaned up. And then, but my obvious interest in the top part is that was indicated that we could trade that to the Forest Service for property near the park out there. So
Okay.
they said, we're not gonna sell you anything out there, just find property to trade. So I don't know if somebody in FWP can determine whether there's two pieces of property or.
Well, I was just thinking about that. We're going to have a surveyor out there this year anyway, surveying our site. And probably relocation of pins as well. But what we could do, Tim, you had Jane Evie get involved with this to a certain degree?
I started, but
Yeah.
she wanted a certain amount of information and I just held her off on it. So.
But the survey that you have is done by Rocky Mountain, correct?
Yes, they
didn't record it, but that was done by Rocky Mountain.
They outlined it and put down what was the railroad, or the highway right away. Old Highway 10 cuts through there,
so we'd probably want.
It divorces the top piece from the bottom piece. They are, if there's Cook property above and below, they are definitely separate pieces of property.
What I'm thinking, I'll just run it by you, is I'm thinking that the department's gonna have to hire a surveyor to go out there, and we're gonna do that this summer. So while they're out there, we could have them check into this issue and identify the pins and the location of the right-of-way and determine who owns that little piece in the corner. I'd be willing to do that if you guys are okay with that. And then I guess I'll just throw this out. It sounds like Tim has a pretty good working relationship with this Bobby Clyde. Maybe he could just visit with that person and get some or find out what that he'd want for some or all of that right away.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you guys want to put a trail system in there, so you probably want the whole thing. And then, depending on what he wants, we'll figure that out. Figure out where the money's coming from later, but we could put in a grant application for Canyon Ferry money, lower Clark Fork, or upper Clark Fork, but
Yeah.
that's a Clark Fork.
That's above Sandpoint.
And I'm guessing, I can't speak for Five Valleys, but they might still have an interest in trail development stuff. And there might be a trails grant still.
Yeah.
So there's,
I mean, I'd be willing to help in that fashion if Tim would work with Bobby, get some title work and, just start the real estate due diligence on it. And the surveyor, as long as they're out there, they might as well do this too. It won't that cost that much more, so, and we can just pick up that bill.
As far as the survey work on the FWP part of the thing, is that just to confirm the limits of it?
Are they planning on doing some development out there this year? Is that why we're doing that retracement?
it goes to a long history of fishing access site program not having any official survey on record catalog for a lot of the fishing access sites.
Mhm.
And it always is the necessary point that every project has to start with that.
Okay.
And so they had allocated in the last legislative session a small pot of money just to do that work where possible when we're doing projects, to try to get a baseline for every fishing access site that they're surveyed and have the pins so that somebody from design and construction in Helena can just digitally pull that up and do work from that and not have to start every project with somebody out on the ground with a surveyor. So it's trying to get that footprint for every fishing access site across the state.
Okay.
And this was one, at least from our fishery staff, that they said, one of many we got to do. We could pick that one up this summer.
Cool. But, in essence, it's been done.
There is a survey, but we do, because it was done quite a while ago, that we do a
Just wanna check it
relocation,
out.
identify where the pins are and restake it, and hopefully nobody pulls them up. But, I don't know, you let me know if you want me to help, because I'm happy to do that.
Oh, okay. Wonderful
But
idea.
he's gotta
Yeah.
tell me what to do, and then I'll tell him how much time I have. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a really, a necessary next step is to have that surveyor provide some expertise in, here's what we think's going on the ground. And we're, if that's a timing issue for us that works well, I think getting that started, and if, at the same time, we can look at the other trails opportunities there, but at a minimum, we can figure out what next steps look like for that deed. We do have, just so we're all keep in the back of our minds, we've made a commitment to Koch's that if we aren't gonna do this due diligence to acquire this piece for us as a contingency for the Fish Creek property, and instead are asking to help accomplish this with the county, we don't want to let this drop. We don't want to leave Randy stuck at the end of this whole thing going, well, what happened? And so one way or the other, we were going to obligate ourselves to trying to help do that. This works for us, so I think this might be a good next step.
I think it would work for us, too.
Okay. And it sounds like there might be enough complicating pieces here that we don't know where it might lead. I'm hearing that this might not be as easy as just surveying the piece and doing it, but maybe it is that easy. But just so we're all aware, no telling where this might lead us, but I think that sounds like a good next step.
Yeah, I think the research on the ownership, where the pins are located, we'll get the surveyor on the ground, and if it looks like we can work something out with Bobby, then I would just work through the title company at the same time we're doing the other Koch acquisitions to have a separate deed, if everything works out, of course, then there'd have to be a separate deed that would go directly to you guys for the property. And I could coordinate that with the title company up here. I don't know, is Carol Billadu still here? No.
Now it's
She's
Michelle
still
Parker.
here, but she retired a long time ago.
She was a sweetheart.
I worked
Man,
for her.
when I was working on the Alberta Gorge, that poor woman. She was an angel. That was probably one of my more complicated projects I ever
With
worked
the
on.
Milwaukee and all that in there.
So, yeah, I'm happy to jump on board and,
Well, that sounds
That
good.
would be great.
Yeah.
do you want me to work directly with Tim then?
Yeah.
Tim, do you want to work with me?
Better.
What flexibility for hiring a survey, do you necessarily have people in the contract, or do you?
When I hire them, I typically like to hire the one that's already been doing work out there, because they have a lot of that information on their databases and in their CAD systems.
And if I don't trust the work of the one that's got all the data and stuff?
Well, you would talk to Jane Eby, and she's a very, very good surveyor.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, this underlying one is Rocky Mountain. And they did both, I mean, do that, but I really, if we could have Jane involved in it.
Oh,
to check
I'm
it.
fine with working with Jane. She's done a lot of work for us, so. And she would probably contact Rocky Mountain and get some of the base information that they have.
Yeah, I mean, we've exchanged all of this, she has this all the time. She's our examining land surveyor, so.
Okay.
She's our county surveyor, but
Okay.
I don't want to get, if you have protocol and follow like that.
No.
But the Jane's opinion about whether there's two of would really be helpful, and then, she was even willing to develop a deed for the county too.
Okay.
For the both pieces too. So one way or the other, we can.
Jane Eby's fine.
If
We'll work through
you
her.
prepared a deed, we'll look at it, or either way, we can exchange whatever, just to be the most efficient about it. So.
Okay. I'm good with Jane Eby. I'll give her a call when I get back to the office and
I just, the
get her on board.
downside is that if we find out that wasn't a piece of property, boy, Randy Cook's gonna come running back at us. I mean, he's gonna he's gonna want his $23 for the last 20 years back. That's what they tax that piece.
Really?
Below the railroad, they're $23 a year.
I'll just tell him I'll pay the closing costs on the acquisition we're working on. It'll more than cover the $23.
But the bigger mystery is why the top part is almost $500 a year.
It's the view.
You probably definitely.
That's where he started building that driveway for the house. Remember Stan Cook was building?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It was steeper than
If
heck.
you go out there and look at that, you can see this rock where he was started piling rocks up there and cut this zigzag trail.
It's hard to tell it on the map that that's that steep.
No, we have all the rocks in our house.
Right.
So if you need any riprap, someone.
That kind of came to an end when one of them rolled down on.
Yeah.
Old Highway
Yeah,
10.
it came down.
Oh.
Kind of put a stopper to it.
Wow.
Well, that'd be a good match for or good addition, kind of, for the fishing access site, nice trail system.
Yeah. No, I think it works well with our plans for the fishing access, and plus it looks like the community's using the heck out of that
Yeah,
already. So
the
that's,
people in town want. What about the dog poop problem? Now you made me worry about that too.
Yeah,
We're the owners.
And we can do that. I mean, the big advantage of it is that we could get together with FWP and do a unified management plan. And I mean, it's really infested with knapweed on there. I've pulled knapweed from those 3 big rocks. I've trespassed all of your place, and I pulled all the knapweed from your rocks down to the line down there on the FWP. So I hand pulled all of that. And been doing a pretty good job. There's a lot less than there was, and I haven't done quite as much on Bobby's side, but I hand pulled their 2 springs and got all of the big plants out of there. So there's probably 75% less knapweed than there was out there.
good. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't think there'd be a real objection. Except my wife gets on my case. She goes, "You put that in a bag and haul it out of there." And I go, "It's theirs. They can keep it." But,
Talking about the dog poop now?
no. The one that got a little bit weird is when we had people in town here that were the horse commuters and stuff, and they decided after we had some talk about that we could ride their horses over there, and they started leaving their calling card. Then I got calls. How are you going to preempt those horses from being on there? And I go, I'm not going to have any plan for that because it's private land, but I'm not sure that we can. So, yeah, it would really be good because it would be nice, I mean, if Bobby happened to, have some kind of donation in the process to put some signage up down there that he did that, and I'd certainly be glad to that. The other thing is that it's a pretty good spot for the kiosk. What is interesting about that piece of property, when you get close to the bridge down there, Bobby doesn't own the bridge. MDT owns 2 lots between him and the bridge.
So on that front, if MDT owns pieces of that, we have a standing MOU and agreement with the Department of Transportation to work on river access projects at bridge crossings. They've been quite willing to work with us on a lot of the projects. So if that ends up being a part of the puzzle pieces, we should be able to help work with them on a final outcome or disposition of that stuff, whether it's easement or access or whatever
Well,
that is.
I've approached them and talked about it, and they go, okay, we own it, it's public, it's part of our public right-of-way system, so, and that basically what we've done is put a bunch of ties out there, and it's on the dividing line, and so park over here, you're at least parking on public property.
Yeah, and if they're willing to keep operating without having to make it too official, that's probably the easiest way. So there it's done. Good job, MDT. And
I think I think we went back and we had that. I think we maybe followed up, tested that with the EPA, that we had tailings testing done on that piece of property out there. I don't think Bobby Clyde's has ever had it tested and stuff. Maybe another level. We think we're going to get the EPA back in here to test maybe 3-4 properties, so might see if Bobby Clyde is inclined to get that tested, so that we just happen to know about that too.
Okay.
Oh, good.
That's good to know. All right.
And the next, do we have another topic, or was that the main one?
That was our main topic.
Liz, I had a question regarding the old Brownie Young piece of where Cook's landed.
Yeah.
There's power up there currently, isn't
There is, yeah.
So what will happen to that?
I don't know, because it's Northwest Energy has that easement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of up to them. So maybe Dar can speak to
Well,
that.
what will that do? I guess I was thinking of, the Pittman Robinson money when you buy that land has that criteria of no modern improvement. So does that negate, will they have to tear all that out, or since it's pre-existing, does it get to stay? Should you choose to leave it there for, I don't know, illuminating something?
It would stay. I think from a resource perspective, we'd rather leave it in the ground than have them tear it out. So, I don't know what's at the end of it. Is it a power,
We had a trailer
power
house there.
pole?
Yeah, they have a mobile home there.
Yeah.
So we probably want to just get a hold of Northwestern and see if they can somehow make it so it's safe.
Cap it off or whatever they do.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that would, if it would allow you, if you ever did put a visitor kiosk or something with,
Mhm.
or because of the way the money works, does that make it defunct to use it?
No, because when we buy land with PR money, anything that existed before we buy it stays with
Okay.
it. So we don't have to tear that stuff out.
Okay.
I think from our perspective, it would just be making sure that it was safe, however it's shut off, or, and then just leave it.
So we did just start our public comment period for that acquisition.
Yeah,
this
so you
week
have a
on
meeting in
Wednesday.
Alberton next week sometime?
Yeah, so public meeting is the 22nd, Thursday evening, 6:30 at the Alberton Community Center. And then the public comment period runs through Friday, April 13th.
6:30, you said?
6:30.
And you, I think Dwayne mentioned it earlier, but you guys are aware, I'm sure, that we're working with the Forest Service on that, fixing that Fish Creek Road.
Oh, mile marker foot.
Yeah, we were just in earlier, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah, she was saying, hopefully it doesn't require one hand bitch and moan, fix the road, and then when it comes time to fix it, don't close it. I'm worried, but it'll be at the height of fire season, and they won't be able to get any rigs up there. But she said they're trying to get a plan where maybe closures will be minimal, or just for a couple hours at a time.
One lane only.
It's gonna be hard to blast it and not have,
people up there.
Yeah.
Well, they'll have some closures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they gotta do
Iron.
some work digging into that hillside, don't they?
Yeah.
Those Subarus will find their way around.
I'm more worried about the water trucks and the fire crews. But the good thing is it's already been burned pretty heavily up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? That's what my husband was grading it one day, and he cut it over and had this berm, and was going up and coming back. And some fisherman pulled right up on top of the berm, parked, and was off fishing.
While he was up the road.
Well, he was up the road, and so he had to wait till, finish the road and then come back and hope that the guy finally came back and got in his car so he could finish that part of the road. Literally pulled up on top of the berm and parked and went off fishing.
That's usually where you see a picture of some sweet reward or some kind of a thing where he can't get in his car. Something happened.
Blade all around it.
Something.
Can't get off
A
it.
big boulder in front of it and a big boulder behind it.
Yeah.
We'll make it with the copies.
Okay, great.
Hopefully before we get out the door,
Well, yeah, so Tim's our contact guy. Well, I'm glad we maybe have a plan to hopefully
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
forward with a little bit of,
Yeah, that's excellent.
yeah.
That's a lot of pieces to fit together.
It looks like it. That's as soon as you get more than one moving part.
Mhm.
And there's a few there.
Yeah. No, that's excellent.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time
Coming
today.
down.
Thanks
If
for
I can
everybody
get through
coming
the
out.
Alberton Gorge, I can get through this.
It's 1:04, and we're here in the afternoon with the Opportunity Zone Designation for low-income census zones in Mineral County, and George Bailey is here. You must have some ideas on this, huh?
Yeah, I've been we were at that meeting, with Senator Daines, and then Ron sent me an email on it the next day or two and said, have you guys heard about this one?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think you have the application. It's, you go to their website, and pretty straightforward. I was just telling Dwayne, they don't have all the rules written on it yet, but it's pretty simple in that the concept is a business like Idaho Forest Group, if they did do, let's just say they did $10 million worth of upgrades at the mill to enhance the viability of it, the way I'm understanding it, for 10 years, they can take their capital gains profit, I'm sure it's only limited to that area, and plow them into that upgrade. And the whole purpose of it is we're in a low income census track, and not only do you want to make sure you retain the workers, but you don't want to lose any, and then if you invest, if these companies invest, then you can potentially even grow, not only wages, but more people. So the way I understand it is, and I have talked to the state, there's a guy, Cash Weismiller, who works in that Main Street, Montana program for commerce, and I had him proof the grant, and he said the census tract is right, and there's a possibility that Main Street, Montana might give you some brownie points. And that they're not sure, I guess, at this point. It's all coming so fast. But so I wrote a section in there that talks about that both Superior and St. Regis have hosted a meeting from him, I think it was last summer, and then looking into maybe using that Main Street Montana program as a way to help revitalize both St. Regis and Superior.
I was wondering if, and I don't know if this can be inserted in your ideas, or maybe you already have this idea, but how the big thing now with all these electronic devices, computers, what have you, and people store their stuff in the quote cloud, which it really is not in the sky at all. It's housed in large servers. I think, doesn't Missoula have one there at their Bonner thing?
Yeah.
I thought, Mineral County, we've got the fiber optic. It'd be nice if, it wouldn't create a lot of labor jobs, but it'd be a building maybe that we could get a tax base off of and have something going on. But one of those, if some company wanted to warehouse their servers, and they get put off a lot of heat, so they prefer cooler climates for the air conditioning issue. I thought, well, maybe that'd be something just to kind of kick around, because it'd be kind of easy to upstart it if somebody just wanted to come here and take advantage of that quick fiber optic line for all this storage stuff.
Well, and you're competing. Denley just showed me the Hot Springs census code is asking him to write a letter of support, for their census code being designated into this. I think there can be 25 statewide.
25, and there are 106 designated areas.
Yeah.
And the idea is, now, I know Thompson Falls is putting in, and I know for the reservation, they were thinking 3 areas.
And have you heard any quote, tangible ideas? Besides putting in, are they talking about swimming pools?
Hot Springs has the old swimming facility, one of them that hasn't been in use for.
Oh, the old original Camas Hot Springs, the one on stilts.
Yeah,
that's on the tribal side of the property line. Does that matter with this?
Yes, see, they're an entity.
It would probably get preference.
But it's all supposed to be even.
Yeah.
But they're planning, they would like to put in lodging, and they would like to build that pool, take the old one down. They had like a $3 million project kind of plan. But they're having trouble a little bit with investors, and this would help investors come in, or even for themselves, to put in some housing to house the housing would qualify also under this to help have a place for the workforce to stay. So what happens is you make out the application, you send it to the governor picks the 25. And so, and I'm not sure what Thompson Falls had in mind for their project, but that was, at least that's one of them that was kind of specific, but the application isn't necessarily a specific project. It's kind of
Just
the idea and the concept.
approving the need, yeah.
And I think for Mineral County, you know, we talk about trying to put out the message of business is welcome here. Well, if they can see that they can get some real advantages, economic advantages coming to Mineral County, and that the county has kind of put in behind this, you know, to me, it's a good thing. It can't hurt.
Right.
At all. You're just putting in the application and if the governor picks Mineral County as one of those 25, that would be a good thing for business to come in, whether it's a cloud, whether it's some transmission storage that George has been talking, or any business.
Well, and what you're saying is I know for a fact, because I work with them, and one of them is Blackfoot is considering, you know, out here, and part of it is the fiber optic, and the other is reliable, low-cost electricity. So I put it in here about this, called the Northwest Energy Storage Training Center, and there's some solar that would be, and maybe even some biomass from the mill, but if you have these instruments, then you can compete against Missoula, Billings, and some of them, because a lot of them have their economic development programs they put in for these tax increment districts, and there's other tax credits above this one, Opportunity Zone. One is called the New Market Tax Credit Program, and you can get about 39% of your money back. So you get it stimulated, and then you get one of these guys to come in, and we already have Tricon, and Idaho Forest Group is a real deal. I mean, them coming in and buying that mill is a real thing. But there could be some new ones, and data storage is not it's logical that Mineral County could be a potential place for that. And so all this Opportunity Zone does is say, hey, we're ready for business in Mineral County too, just like all the other counties.
And I think the opportunity for housing too, to develop housing, comes under, I think, some of the authority. You can do that. So, you know, and we always talk about even the school teachers, trying to get school teachers in St. Regis. There's no housing for them.
Well,
So they don't even,
Anybody.
I talked to
people
Angelo yesterday, and he said
The
that,
mill.
you know, they have people coming in to work for the mill, and they can't find a place to live.
So it can open up a little bit if some businessman comes in, or some company that builds housing developments. It would maybe give them enough incentive to say we're coming to Mineral County instead of Missoula. Because it's all, to them, it's all about money. So they can get a little kickback.
This is your transmission idea here?
Yeah, this is a company I work for. They're in the Silicon Valley called Primus Power. And I'm working all over the country and state, Colstrip initially. And as I was working with them the last year, it's like, well, just like you said, Roman, what about Mineral County? And I'm just starting to realize that we have a lot of attributes, not only the fiber optic line, not only the ability to maybe put in some solar that is PV, and then if we put a storage system in, the mill's already, I think, done some of the preliminary work on a biomass energy system. And then if you have the reliable renewable energy, these companies will then look to come in, and so this is one that we're proposing kind of in the St. Regis community, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't be in other parts of the county, because it's a really modular, portable system, and so that's what I like about our proposal here. We're pretty much taking the whole showing the way halfway through Superior. It's Cedar Street, so River Street, Saul, and then west, and then east of Cedar Street, all the way back through the rest of the county. It must be, you know, this low income census tract must be what the census, you know, takers get. And if you have a higher, you know, income population, so that's only because we were talking about Alberton, the only thing I can think of is some of those new homes that, you know, kind of went in along the river and, you know, that one subdivision that's just kind of west of town.
North Front.
I can't figure out what, it seems like, you know, Alberton would be part of this too, but the track is actually divides right here in Superior and then goes all the way to
We're
the
in the high
border.
class area of Oklahoma.
I guess.
Yeah, so you don't quite understand our problem.
I've known that.
That's all the more reason to
Well, let me
listen.
tell you about my colleague from Sin City, Erin.
Listen to our problem, see, we're down on that end of the county.
I wish I had a Knight's trailer court.
But no, it's
It doesn't cost the county any money to do this,
Mhm.
except the time to write the application out and send the letter and.
well, and actually, it's all done. It's all I need is the signature. If you want to write another letter or you want to rewrite it, you can. But I've already proofed it with the guy that's going to get it, and he said it looks great. I just need a signature, and then Emily and I are working on it. But we'll probably get some letters of support from like the city of Superior and community council over in St. Regis and.
I thought I'd send one to the governor.
Oh, cool.
On official station.
We're, with it basically not being divided in our county, if there's 25 of them, I don't know if all the counties are going to, like a lot of the eastern ones don't have poverty zones. Everybody works and they have the ranch and stuff. So I think there's probably a pretty high probability that we can get one, in this county.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Speaking of that, does anybody know what's going on with the land where the old DAW mill? Is Johnson Brothers still doing that?
Far as I know.
I think they lost their contract with the school, didn't they, for the pellets? I wasn't there, or not school, but
The
the
hospital,
Hospital, yeah.
I think they weren't
Yeah.
high enough quality, I heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think, they haven't been doing them that I know of, but they were
No, I
talking
didn't.
about starting it up again. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
Hmm.
That would be a good industrial
And-
park.
Tesh said you didn't need a resolution. He just said if one of the officials of the county signed it was enough, but I don't know what you guys want to do. If you,
Formally submit ourselves to.
here's the actual
Oh, this is
application,
just
but
an airport.
I
Oh, that's
emailed
the
it to you.
Oh, yeah, is that what Casey gave us here?
Yeah.
It's just
Oh, well, that's the same.
same one.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have it.
So that's the one that.
And then it's got to be emailed back to the state. They had it really tight. They said the 19th of March initially when it came out, but then they got a reprieve till the 30th. But
Oh, good.
I think if we get it signed, then I'll just send it back, and then we'll work on getting the letters of support in. And
I think one of the things positive about it is it shows, everybody talks about jobs and jobs and jobs, and I think it shows that you guys are being proactive on something that could help jobs. It's not a guarantee, but it's
No,
opening
But
the
it's a
door that
start.
otherwise is harder to open.
yeah. Well, and it may be, maybe the only opportunity
Yeah.
kind of a play
Yeah.
on words there.
But it came down with the federal tax bill, and
Yeah.
so.
And I
the
think
idea-
that's,
the
I
idea
think
was
that's
to try
something
and
that should be made known too.
Tried to make,
you know?
it's to try and make it known that that's supposed to help stimulate business.
It seemed like all you seen on the news was, well, this is gonna save you $30 a month on this tax bill, but, if you get something like this going, and you can produce some jobs in this county, boy,
well, you
there's your proof in the pudding right there.
You've been working there. If the mill, they're the largest employer that I know of in the county. And they're on just like the county, I love your tax letter, by the way, too.
It's really trendy.
I thought that was just so cool. But it's the type of thing where we know that we're marginal out here. We're hanging on by our fingernails. Let's be honest. And it's the type of thing where they put this out there, And if that mill can go ahead and invest, just say they invest another $5 to $10 million, that's construction jobs that come into our county. That's a tax base for our county, and they're probably going to employ some more people. If I can get, a data center and a, energy system thing going in, that's great, but that's kind of pie in the sky. We've got a mill that, I know our business, Region Realty, if we didn't have a primary foundation organization like Idaho Forest Group, I don't know how we could be realtors in Mineral County, because it's the type of thing. Everybody, if you look at the hospital, you look at the school, even Muffy's operation to a degree is dependent on a certain amount of activity being done in Mineral County, and that's about the last one we have.
Yeah.
So if this program, as part of the tax thing, can show that those 100+ people have a job, then that create jobs for other people. Like everybody in this room is basically working because we've got some kind of primary activity in the county. So
the one you have filled out here, George, it says, so the opportunity zone designation, if approved, would be used with other programs such as the new market tax credit renewable energy. So you've got kind of emboldened in here the Northwestern Energy deal, training center proposing to develop a 20 megawatt biomass solar wind generation energy storage training center. Our ability to attract private equity through the opportunity zone designation will be paramount to supporting economic development and improving job creation, higher wages, and these and other sectors of our economy. So it's not only that idea, but any others that come along?
Well, one of them, the Main Street program is kind of cool in that it helps you revitalize not only your Main Street, but your Main Street businesses. But the way I'm understanding this, and Castle sits over on that side of the opportunity zone. What if they decided to put another $500,000, and upgrade the facility in some way? I think it would help them, so it's not just the mill, and it's all the traditional businesses that could benefit. I put that in there because they're very aware of what we're doing in Colstrip, and they're very supportive of what we're doing there, and so I wanted them to know that if they designated our census tract, there could be some activities that would be not only good for our area, but good for the state. But it's not just energy storage, like Muffy and Gary, Jasper's, if they wanted to do some investment in the Super 8 or whatever. What I understand is they could come in because they're inside that opportunity zone, and if they felt like it made sense for them, they could apply for some of this funding through the
So
opportunity
Cedar
zone.
Street is right down here, right?
I think it's a block that way, isn't
Okay,
it? Yeah.
so like the old school
Town,
would be
Yeah,
in
the town,
this-
well, the fire hall is on Cedar Street. So it's,
Okay, so it's just
Yeah,
this next street.
right behind us,
So actually, the old school, if
Yeah.
any businesses in there.
and you think about any motel that decides, the way they're popping up around Missoula, we could have a big one come out this direction, and I'm sure they would consider if they had that kind of an incentive, it would help them make a decision maybe to come.
Yeah. Well, and some of those tax credits, I mentioned New Market, because it might work into our project that we're working on. Siemens, a pretty big company, is the one behind, that's kind of the parent company of our energy storage project. But it's the type of thing where they can get 39% of their money, like if you have a $10 million project, the first 7 years, they get 39% of their money back in this New Market tax credit against whatever taxes they pay. So you got 3.9 million. I'm going to guess this one's going to be at least your capital gains would be probably over 10 years would be another $2 or $3 million for a project like that. So then they start going, why wouldn't I build a motel? Why wouldn't I do the energy project here? And that's the whole reason they put these in the first place. Max did the new market, and he was chairman of finance, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they first wrote it, when all the money went to the big cities, and then he tweaked it. And now that lawn, Garlington, that building
Yeah.
is right downtown. That 4 or 5 story building was paid. You know, there was a new market tax credit project, and Dave Blazer, I knew him when I was at the university. He runs that program for the new markets, and I told him about this project, and he said, "Yeah, bring it on. If you know, when you get it all written up." So all we're saying is, the more we work as a area to take advantage of the programs they put in place and make sure that our area gets kind of shot at.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
I don't know, I didn't see the letter, I didn't read through the letter close up, but, and I don't know if you guys want to get too specific so that it may align you too hard, and I don't know how the writing goes, but, make that as an example, this is a possibility, and we have the possibilities of, it would open up the avenue for the motels and for the bigger business, just so they don't feel like you've already got some big company coming and buying you off into saying, well, you better sign this, You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's written really generic, and the way their form is just basically they're trying to get justification to pick this census tract, and it's not project specific, like you said. It's just does the county qualify first, or the census tract, and then the second part, why should we pick you over one of the others?
Yeah.
But I think the more opportunities that can be pointed out that it can open up, that's a great selling point.
Yep. Certainly is.
So that, you mentioned Colstrip, so when they're scaling back over there, this company here can kind of step in and pick up the slack for the energy that's required.
They're going to close 1 and 2. That was a decision that Puget Sound Energy and then Callan Energy. So that's closing on July 1st of 2022. So it's not our company is going to be part of it, but another company is coming in with a 50 megawatt energy storage system. It's called Liquid Air and energy storage. And so it'll work with the Colstrip Train 4 plant. We'll take waste heat off of that and be able to run our energy storage plant more efficiently.
Hey, Ronnie.
And so that will perpetuate the longevity of 3 and 4. And
She'll
so,
beat us a second. She's going to take it.
But then when I was working on that road, I was like, well, who's on the other end?
Ronnie,
where do those lines go?
That's all right.
There's 2,100 megawatts of energy produced over there, and it all goes right through Mineral County. And I'm going, first, is this feasible for our county? And it is.
We're only 3 miles away. Most of the valley is 3 miles away from that line.
And so the 50 megawatts is going to help replace some of that 600 megawatt loss. And it's just crazy. I had no knowledge of this. I get all these different projects and learn stuff, but right now Northwestern Energy has over 490 megawatts of wind. It's called nameplate, but they actually have contracted for it. It's in our rate base. We pay for it as consumers in Northwestern Energy. Guess what percentage of that is currently being utilized? From 0 to 100%, what part of that 900 or 490 megawatts of power do you think is being used?
1%.
It's a little higher, 4.7.
Wow.
And why can't you use the rest? Well, wind's intermittent, and you have to have some kind of either energy storage, or you want to build a natural gas combined cycle power plant to balance it. It's called a peaker plant. Well, all the utilities in the country are going to energy storage because it's the cheapest way to balance the renewables. And solar is really good to understand too, because we put some solar, PV things in, great during the day, but what happens at night? So that's why these battery companies, and ours is one of the biggest ones. You do Microsoft and Department of Defense, and so but they can be located anywhere. And Roman's thing, he started well, why couldn't we get a data center? Well,
Mhm.
we have the electricity and it's renewable, you know, and they can know that they can buy it for a 20-year period and it's gonna cost them about this much.
Mhm.
And I've always said that Mineral County and is like, because of the freeway and closeness to both Spokane and Missoula, it's a really easy place. Try to recruit people to Broadus, Montana. I mean, it's like, really? I didn't know it was a cowboy. It's like, how far is the airport? Well, it's a ways. But Mineral, I mean, sitting here, you know, and it's, I think, you know,
Well, and
we could-
if these require large items to be trucked in, I mean, we also have the railroad for the
Yeah.
larger thing.
yeah. So I guess all I need is, if you guys want to do it, is sign it at some point, and then I'll get it.
Do you want to read this, Denley?
I would like to, please.
And then, the other one that I'd like to bring up, and I don't know if it's ever been discussed, but are you aware of what's called a tax increment district?
I know how they
Remotely,
work,
maybe?
yeah.
They don't take your county taxes away, which the letter was pretty clear in the paper to the federal government. We don't have very many people to tax.
Right.
The government doesn't. But it takes the state part of our property taxes away. And Butte has used it really well. Other counties, big counties, all have it. They're called tax increment districts. And so, similar to this reprogramming the capital gains, your property tax for a 20-year period that go to the state for these programs can be redeployed in that district. And so that's something that I think over time we should consider too for Mineral County, because that's how Butte, when the mines closed, they got that district in, and then that's how they got that REC Silicon Manufacturing Center. They make all the saline gas and that silicon material for the PV industry. They're in Butte, but they got about 350 people. If you're coming into Butte and you're like, if you turn off to Idaho Falls or Pocatello,
I-15 there.
yeah,
at
it's
Rocker.
called the Montana Connections Business Development Park. And they have a whole, not just the one, they probably have like 600 jobs. And that's where that Bitcoin and some of that, those servers are going in there. Because the developer goes, well, I'm going to get my property taxes back and I get to fly them. I'm not sure if they qualify for the opportunity zone. They might not have enough low census, but the tax increment would be another instrument that over time we should talk about.
Cool. Well, I think it sounds pretty good. We certainly don't have anything to lose by it. Have everything to gain.
Yep.
Do we need a motion to sign it or not?
Might be helpful, I guess. Let-
Like I say, it shows a proactive approach to jobs for the county, and that's what when I go out, people keep, well, we need jobs, we need jobs, well,
Yeah.
you need housing too, well,
Yeah.
and that would be on that underline 5, I think. You know, that might be one more. It says how it help reduce poverty, and I think, you know, sometime with the housing, create housing, and also the potential with the tourist trade for motels and hotels.
When,
Well, I would make a motion.
Okay.
Roman, if we're open for a
Yeah.
motion, that we apply for the Opportunity Zone proposal.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
And you've already written this, George? Or
Yeah.
you've
And
figured
I
out-
ran it by the guy that's going to get it, and he said it looks good. But
Good.
When is the decision rendered by the governor for the 25?
they have to send them to the, it sounds like to the feds by sometime after the 30th of March. So
The governor has to decide by then.
I'm assuming they're going to get them in by the 30th, and then they'll probably, this Tash Miller will be leading the group to evaluate them and probably give their recommendation. You know, the staff will, and then they'll probably
Okay.
do something after that,
All right.
a week or two.
Motion by Dwayne, seconded by Lori. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll put pen to paper then.
One of the things on the letters, I think we can get some of that housing. I kind of stayed away from the housing a little bit because I was like, oh, he's wanting, sell houses or something. But well, I do, but it's like, and I
that's what
totally agree
Denley's
with
saying,
you. But but it doesn't say it's specifically for any one thing. I just gave a couple examples.
And they'd be pretty hard pressed to say
Emily
it
and I
wasn't
put.
true.
I know that there's Human Resource Council has that land that's
That
by Smith Road.
subdivision.
Yeah, and I think,
And I was telling Kelly that yesterday. I said, boy, I wish we had lots of money. I said, we could buy that subdivision and build some houses on there. Low income, affordable housing on there, but I have to win the lottery to do
It's on the
that.
market. What's the market price now?
I don't know, I didn't see it.
I don't remember.
I know they wanted somewhere around 500. What was
I
it?
think it's 579.
Wow. Yeah, but everything's in, it's got all the sewer
Yeah.
hookups and,
Yeah, water and power and.
Cows once in a while.
yeah, no, and I mean, it's the same
About
thing,
twice a
in
year
our
the
area,
cows
same
get
thing that Chris
Your
is,
cows?
Yeah.
There's just not houses, so
There
if
isn't.
there's no houses, then they don't live in our county
Then why
and
move here if they can't find a place to live?
yeah.
Well, and that's what I hear, even from the school, they're talking about enticing teachers to come, and it's housing is
Oh,
is part of
yeah.
the problem for staying and for coming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another one of the, that's probably one of the first businesses that stepped in a little more reasonably. Well, I will work up some kind of, if I can get maybe a copy of that so I have the numbers.
Yeah, I sent it to you once in your email, but I didn't get
And that's the same one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent it to him, and then I had sent the draft to everybody.
Yeah, I got that.
And then he changed the wording on the Main Street stuff, and so I changed that, and so I sent it back out. But one of the things we'll kind of send back to KC2 and you guys the letters of support when they go in.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, what I'll probably do is maybe I'll send them right to the governor, and then I'll give you guys a copy to attach to the application of the same letter.
Send them the letter from our tax bill too, because they owe us money too. Don't let them off the hook. Because don't they own 10% of the county? The
Well,
state?
it's Fish, Wildlife and Parks.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, but it's still
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, no
Yeah, it's
kidding.
still state.
Well, Fish, Wildlife and Parks pays their DNRC.
Well,
has
no.
to.
Well, they
Not
pay
at
some
the-
of their,
Yeah,
they
not
pay
at
some
the
of their.
market, or what they should be paying on what if you spend, what
Well,
was it?
Well,
How
yeah,
much
it
should
depends
they
on what
spend
you're
for
talking
that?
$1 million
recreation
for
and
that?
camping and.
It was more,
900.
1.4 million or
Yeah.
something for that Rabine property, and
Yeah.
But when they
Well,
bought,
don't tax me what mine might be worth either.
No,
Right.
it should only be what they pay for it at the time.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad probably paid peanuts, so don't worry.
27,000.
27,000.
Wow. Well, thank you guys.
thank you,
Thanks
George.
for your
working hard.
interest, George, and I hope we can make it launch.
I don't think,
You're not
I look
hurting
out in the
yourself on any-
future and I think this county is gonna change, over the next decade, but it's gonna be, I think it's gonna start really small, but I think someone's gonna discover us and then,
I hope so.
but the one that's covering us now is the mill, so we gotta make sure we don't lose them.
Yeah,
I
really.
was really disappointed that Weatherby didn't move here.
Was there looking at,
So they're moving to Wyoming. They're pulling out of California and moving to
yeah.
Wyoming.
But see, these are all incentives, Wayne, that
And that's just why.
if,
Out of 21 states, Wyoming had the best tax outlook.
Yeah, and that's, you're not gonna see statewide, and I'll just tell you, I don't think the legislatures, they're not really too keen on giving tax credits, because they think they're giving the money away. So you may not see too much come down from Helena on that topic, just because they just thinking we're already in revenue problems.
Yeah.
So, but this is a good way to, it comes above the state. So.
All
And
right.
I'm leaving too, so I can.
Thanks, Stanley, for,
Yeah.
Thanks.
for your
Thank
help
you,
too,
Jerry.
and
Support, yeah.
participating so much now that you're a retired guy. You're down here a lot more. We appreciate it.
Well, I look at the agenda too, and I pick and choose a little bit, because I can't be everywhere, and I have
Don't
to get
blame
some
you.
farming done too. so.
Yeah.
Real quick.
We didn't really have any public in to comment, but Commissioner Johnson thought she'd comment on the public comment, and then
Well,
we'll go transition into the next item, so.
Just for full disclosure, Mineral County is a member of the American Forest Restoration or Resource Council, and they had a Lolo National Forest timber purchasing meeting yesterday, in which both Roman and I went to. So just wanted to let you know that we were both there, and they just kind of gave an update on their what they're doing, as far as their legal, AFRC is their legal program. In 2017, AFRC staff got directly involved in 10 new cases, either as a defendant, intervener, or amicus, whatever, and helped
Yeah.
settle one case. And they, in their legal program, defended projects producing over 400 million board feet of timber. And they also provided a timber sales schedule for the Lolo National Forest, and for fiscal year 2018 through 2022, and of the 22 timber sales that are slated for that period of time, 11 of them are on the Superior Ranger District. So, yeah. So anyway, just kind of full disclosure that both Roman and I were at the meeting, and there was no county business.
And she had it posted on the thing.
Yeah, she had it on the thing, but it didn't post it as a quorum, but it was on the agenda that we were both gonna be there, so. Anyway, we were both at this
I
meeting.
sat across
so-
the room from you.
Yeah, we weren't even sitting close to each other, so.
And I wasn't there, so.
No holding hands.
Anyway, I just wanted to,
And by comparison to that 11 timber sales out of that 22, it wasn't but about 5 years ago, there wasn't hardly anything coming off the Superior Range.
Wow.
yeah, it's really interesting that Missoula County only has one, and it's that Marshall
Yeah.
Woods
how many acres
EA, and
is it?
it's only 168 acres.
168 acres of logging.
Yeah. Yep, so it's mainly the Superior and Plains Thompson Falls District.
So quite a few acreage,
Hmm?
quite a bit of acreage involved.
Let's see, in 2018, and this of course takes in the salvage. But let's see, harvest acres is, in 2018, is 12,000 acres. Let's see, in 2019, that's only like 3,400 acres. Well, that, I don't know, it doesn't sound, anyway.
I think it's better than.
But anyway, it's,
Well, it's
at
better than
least
it's
we're
been.
getting some.
It's still
work
not where
done.
we'd like
Yeah.
to be.
Right, and not where
Because
it's been in the past. but
We're
it's
30
movement in the right
years
direction.
behind,
Yeah.
yeah. It-
But anyway, some of their, because we are a member, if we have any, forced litigation or whatever, they'll step in. Right now, their legal program, defending important forest management tools, on the emergency situation determination, they're involved in the Tower Grizzly project on the Idaho Panhandle, which actually Tricon Timber purchased timber off of that one.
Yeah, and that was thrown completely out.
Yeah, yep.
The legal challenge on that.
Yeah, it says the Ninth Circuit Court issued its ruling in January 17th, 2018, affirming the district court's denial of a preliminary injunction. And then because of this, the Alliance for Wild Rockies dropped the suit. So, and then they're also involved in
They've never been
the
challenged.
East Reservoir project on the Kootenai National Forest up at Libby. So, anyway, so I just kind of wanted to give an update that we were both at the meeting.
Okay, so in the public, oh, so there's more public comment. We'll go on to the next agenda item, which is with Dale Magone, Justice Court Clerk position fulfillment request. This must be the one that Brandy was holding
Yeah.
before.
As you know, Brandy resigned as of last week, and she's going back to dispatch.
Detention, I
She's
think.
currently at the academy.
Detention. I
Oh,
think
she's
she's
going to
going to
detention?
detention.
Oh, okay. She has 4 to 5 weeks in the academy.
Yeah. And that's more just the job duties of the clerk. And so we were just wanting to advertise to replace her position.
So is this job description one you just did?
It's one that we've kind of had a work in progress. It's been, I just know there's been a lot of focus on that position being strictly just the collection agency stuff, and it really is entailing more than that. So we just wanted you to have an actual description of what we're going to be looking for, and it's not just, because we want to be completely cross-trained. You know, even if they're just a part-time person, we still want that cross-training. Like if Wendy and I were to go to training or something, we want to make sure we've got coverage back at the office that can understand and do everything.
And we want everybody in the office, like Tim said, cross-trained. So nobody actually has one specific duty. Wendy does most of the financial part, but if she's not there for some reason, Kim can do it. As far as courtroom duties and what have you, we rotate those. Way that, you know, people, answering phone people up at the counter, processing citations, getting ready for court, all that type of thing.
And I don't know if we were clear when we talk about collections for us, we're talking about sending them to a collection agency or staying on top of the monies due to the court. And then there's a separate duty that entails work with collection agencies. That's our civils for, you know, someone suing something or missing, you know, late medical bills, that kind of stuff. So there's two different things when we talk about collections.
Collections for your own find, and then collections.
And then a
for-
separate department or separate division of it is the civil, and that would be the collections with the civils for unpaid hospitals and stuff. So there are, sometimes we say that and it kind of gets encompassed all together, but there really are two very distinct differences.
Well, there's, when people get fined and what have you, you gotta kind of sit on top of them to make them pay. And a lot of times it entails sending out letters,
There's a
fail to pay
lot
letters.
of times you have to handle one case from start to finish. But it's just to reiterate that we still need that position, and we're coming just to make sure that we can advertise for it and get someone in and get them trained. You know, and we always know that there's things that we can't control going forward, but when we've already got the budget in place for this position, we really want to make sure we can get that filled and get them utilized.
There's just a lot of work to stay on top of things.
Right, there really is. When you start talking about the compliance aspect of it,
Mhm.
most courts have a separate compliance clerk.
Mhm.
Because you're following up on anger management, ACT classes, you're following up on scrams, and, you know, there's so many different things you have to follow in addition to making sure they're paying in a timely manner and stuff. It takes a lot more work, you know, than what you perceive when you say, oh, compliance, or, you know, failed to pays, or collecting on money. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but there really is a lot to it. And the quicker we can get someone to replace Brandy, the better off we'll be, so we don't get back to that point of getting behind and then trying to play catch up. So we had hoped that things would have been a little quicker, and we could have had this advertised, you know, a month ago. But for whatever reasons, it didn't work out that way. So we would just like to get it in place as soon as possible.
How many days a week was she coming?
3.
24 hours.
24 hours.
$9 an hour.
And like I said, we're already budgeted for the remaining year, you know, because it's not, if anything, it'll probably be a little less. Just because we're not, you know, she won't be doing our hours, their hours, and all that overtime hours in addition. But we just, you know, we had brought the ad to have it submitted, and then just, we know we needed to come in and talk with you guys about it. So I don't want to take up your time, or a lot of your time, we don't, but we just want to make sure you guys are good with us putting that advertisement in.
And you have the day-to-day operations too, of phones ringing, people coming in and trying to get ready for court. We really don't want to let the collection part of that slide.
Mhm.
That's an important part of revenue for the county.
Right, I mean, and, you know, even if it's not us physically collecting it and it's coming into the office, once we get to a certain point and they're non-compliant with us, we send them to the collection agency. We're, in the last 2 months, since January 1st, have collected over $7,000 just from collections. And that's not anything we would be collecting had we done our normal process and pretty much just wrote it off. So that just in 2 months, granted, some of it gets split and goes to the state and some stays with the county, but that's pretty good for 2 months. When we only sent to them maybe 13 accounts or something. So it may not be as much going forward to collections because we're being able to stay on top of it. So you might see a decline in the collections part of it just because we're not sending as much to them because we're being able to stay on top of it as in the house, in courthouse, and not have to go outside with it. But that will stop once we start being able to stay on top of it. Once we start missing just those first letters to pay, it gets so far behind just that fast that we're going to start losing money again because we won't have the time to stay on top of it.
But you're caught up now, you think?
We're never really caught up. I'm still going through the filing cabinets. We seem to go work on our most prominent, like our criminal, our tickets and stuff like that, the felonies, we don't collect on felonies, but the misdemeanors, the traffic tickets. That's our big priority, and that's where we try to make sure we're staying on top of. And then we move into regular collections. And there's one big filing cabinet that's just full of collections that we have not been able to go back through, even with having that part-time person. So to say we're caught up with more or less our criminal aspect of it, but not with the civil part of it. That's still something, and that's concerning in itself because there are time limits, for some of these filings, whether it be writs of execution or complaints and summonses that need to be processed and filed within a timely manner. And that seems to be sometimes where our piles are getting up because we're so focused on trying to keep the money coming in because it's such a priority that sometimes the other stuff slides a little bit. So to say we're completely caught up, I would have to be honest with you and say no. We're definitely maintaining in a lot better than we were a year ago.
Last year, the citations, like we talked about before, they were up 500 over the previous year. And I just ran for the last 2 months, and we're already starting to be above this last year too.
So we're shooting to have a good year. But it also depends on the troopers out there writing tickets or the deputies out there writing tickets because we can only do so much, obviously. The more they're out there and getting active, the more we'll start seeing tickets come in. And we're kind of at a lull right now because they've had a couple of MHP officers leave that we haven't gotten replaced yet. So we're not getting as many tickets right now, but especially with summer coming, that's going to really pick up. So there's the potential of, if we can stay on top of it, of keeping things going. Being one of the few offices that are actually helping bring money back into the county, it's our priority to try and do the best we can because we realize we're already struggling and we're not asking for more than what we had last year. We just want to replace her so that we can maintain that.
So I know, there's a lot of stuff Dale can't do. I mean, is there stuff that he
There's a lot of stuff that he does that we've never had another judge do, And not only are we just doing the regular stuff, but then they add e-filing to us, and so that's a different process that we're still in the process of learning. And here, probably in the next couple of months, I'm scheduled to go to Helena to help with the next phase of this program, which is called Enterprise. And there's only all the clerks in the state, including district court clerks. Kathleen and I were asked to go, but I think there might be maybe 10 total. So, they're seeing the effort we're making, and they're wanting to utilize us in helping train the other clerks and stuff throughout the state because we have a handle on it where so many others don't. So at some point, you know, things are gonna change because of the way the software and stuff will be coming into us, and hopefully it'll make it easier for us, but I'm not full of high hopes at this point that it'll be easy right away. So I think we're gonna see a little bit of backlog again before we get, just once enterprise comes on, there may be a little backlog that we'll need some help working through. But I don't think, we would like to say that this, at one point, we're gonna get caught up, but as long as the county is bringing, the citations are coming in, I hope we never do get caught up in that aspect of it, because that means we're gonna be generating more revenue, bringing in more money to the county. Because once we're all caught up and we're just twiddling our thumbs, no more revenue's coming in. We're not doing as much as we can for the county. And as long as we have people to do that, and we have the sheriff's deputies and the troopers to support, the more income we can bring in. And it's not like we're going out and generating revenue. These are legitimate fines. We're not like flagging people down and writing them bogus tickets and stuff like that. They're legitimate, but once we start getting that level back up, there was a time that we were issuing over 4,000 tickets in a year. We might be down to about, one time I think we were maybe down to the low 2,000s, and I think this last year we were kind of going back up towards the high 2,000s, beginning of the 3,000. So there's a potential of some growth if we can get the whole, you know, it's been a while since we've had a jail, it's been a while since some of these things happened, and so you're gonna see some fluctuation there. But there's definitely a need, if we want to keep contributing, to have that position.
And this person comes in on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and those are our court dates. So usually, if there's hearings or something, it takes one person out of the downstairs that has to be up in the courtroom, and they're handling the files and what have you. So say if on those days, maybe somebody's out sick, we would have somebody else to actually be down in the
Or at trainings, and we don't, the clerks don't get trainings that often. They have them, but some of them are just not feasible. But we've got one coming up at, like I said, at the end of May, and as it stands right now, it would be one or the other of us, you know, if even that, because we pretty much budgeted out all of our training, made sure Dell had his, but you guys went above and beyond in the fall training. And there was a lot that came through for us in that fall training that we would have missed out on had you guys not made it possible for us to go. So we're very appreciative, and we know it's not easy to pull that stuff out. But it is an important aspect of being able to do our jobs.
Well, there was changes made that we didn't realize were made.
Well, there were changes that, I don't know when they were made, changes into the search warrants and how search warrants and stuff are processed. That's a big deal. You know, search warrants can get a case thrown in or out of court, you know. But there have been changes at some point during one of these trainings that we weren't able to go to that we didn't know about until almost 2 years later.
They won't, if you don't pay the money for training, they won't give you the training booklet.
Well, and even if you pay the money and are part of the association, they still don't give you the training for it. You have to physically be there. We've asked time and time again, is there any way to get these on PowerPoint or through email, just the presentation, the documents? And they just said there's no way to do it. I don't know if the Clerks Association doesn't have the funds for it, if they don't have the knowledge. But we've even asked, you know, we can't afford to go and spend the time at training and the travel time and all that stuff. Is there any way we can get the training information from either the presenter or whoever's setting up that meeting? Yeah. And we have not yet been able to get that to happen. So, you know, even if it's just one of us going, it's a priority. And I know we're not here to talk budget and training and all that stuff, but really just the bottom line is we just want to get the okay to go ahead and advertise so that we can get someone in place and get them up to speed before trainings start happening and Wendy or I have to leave, because I've got one in Helena. Wendy will be going to Dillon, I think, in the same week. If she can go.
I guess my concern is we've got 3 months left of this budget year. We don't know what we're going to do, and so I would hate to hire somebody for 3 months and say,
but we did this with
sorry.
Brandy, and
you know, I mean, that's my concern is, you know, who's going to want to come to work knowing that in 3 months I might not have a job.
Right, but I think if we can offer it, because like I said, we're already budgeted for it. It's not like we're going to take any more money than what's already been budgeted. And if we hire them under the, not just hire, but interview based on the fact that this is a part-time position that may leave as soon as July. I mean, we're not hiding this from people. Even when we interviewed, even though Brandy was the one we hired a lot of people outside the courthouse, but we made sure they were understanding and unaware that if you take this position, there's a possibility come July 1st that it may not be here. So we're telling these people up front, we're that desperate for the help, that if we can only get it for 3 months, it's better than not at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, we just
because,
don't
and
wanna
then I'm
start-
looking
we
at
just
poor
don't wanna-
Ellen.
We just
that's-
don't want to start losing ground.
You know, come budget
Well,
time, we might, you
We
know,
don't
I
like to
mean.
lose ground though either, Dale, and I think it's fair to say that we should wait until budget time to see just where we're at before we hire anybody.
But why not utilize the budgets that's already there and to keep
We
us
have the
out of
money.
getting
Well-
in the hole?
What is it, Ellen, do you know, are fair labor laws or whatever, can you hire somebody telling them the job's only going to last for?
Well, we don't tell them it's going to only last that long. We tell them there's a possibility.
But, yeah, okay.
Right.
As long as it's full disclosure at the front end.
Yeah.
And then, again, because of circumstances outside of the control of, you know, the department, we had a budget cut and we can't, but no, yeah.
Right. I mean, we would love to ensure that you guys gave us that position forever, but we know it's not feasible. There may come a time that
Yeah.
we just can't pull it. But just so you know how important it is that with the budget already in place, we're not asking you to modify or change anything. It's to get that person in. 3 months' work is a lot of collections that we can do that we would not get to.
Do you
It's
happen to know how
probably
much
enough to
is
make
left
it.
in the budget to the end of the year? Like is-
Yeah, well, I looked at that and we're good. We're still,
I mean, some of them might, like our training or stuff we had to pull out of one to do another because we maxed out on the training. So there's a few things like you might see that's in the red here or whatever, or close to being, but there's others that have, surplus in it. So we've really, really tried hard to stay within
Okay.
that. And we've had some unexpected things come up.
Well, my feeling is like Mary Yarnell needs help. You guys are showing you need help. I don't know if Ellen, did you say Ellen needs help too?
Well, I just see her
Well,
here at
maybe
8
not-
o'clock
maybe
at
not
night and.
Professional help.
Right,
I need
but
professional
that's what
help.
I'm
Not
saying
assistance,
is,
So,
right, yeah,
Professional.
you know, I mean.
so my only
Yeah.
reason for apprehension is what I foresee, if the other 2 or 4 is that we'd have to probably wait for the dust to settle on all the selection stuff, but I would really like to see somebody who didn't just work 3 days a week, but maybe did 5, and they had, Monday, Wednesday, Friday with you guys, Tuesdays with Mary.
Other departments are willing.
Because I think we need a floater, and speaking of cross-training, then this person could help all the departments.
And I would be all for that. Like I said, I can't speak for the person. I mean, that's a lot of information to learn. And we've offered, not that we can help much with other departments, but on our down times when things are not fast, if there's things that they can have us do, whether it be mailings or, just whatever we can do to help, we're willing to do that too. It's not like we don't understand that other people are in that need, but we are going to lose income if we don't maintain that position. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
and right now, like you're saying, we're staying up on the fail to pay letters and threatening suspension, and so we've got that income coming in.
We're looking at maybe $11,000, $12,000 a year for a 24-hour person. I mean, of course, that we're not counting benefits because there's not benefits included. Just in 2 months in doing this collections, we've already brought in almost $7,000. That's 2 months. Not all of that stays. So even if you say half of that stays, in 2 months we've made $4,000. That pays almost half of that person's wage right there. So it's not like we're asking for something. We're asking for it to help us maintain that income.
Is this the budget you brought?
We don't have the actual budget.
Oh.
I think we've got some other numbers and stuff for the court
But I
specific.
think I do have the budget.
And just to let you know too, Lori and I had just briefly talked last week about the increase in the number of cases too. From 16 to 17, I think it was a 20% increase in tickets.
Right.
That's significant. Lori had commented on that about how, that's a significant number. And then what we're also doing, just from my perspective, is a lot of our cases in justice court, the defendants might kind of float away. And Kirk and I have most of those cases. So we've actually just scheduled probably 20 bench trials, which is a lot. And we have 2 days coming up where we're doing 5 and 6 trials, which thank goodness they're just bench trials. but it's all day where we're gonna have the judge, and that means we're gonna have to have a clerk, because, and it was actually the public defender's suggestion.
Right.
We have cases that have been going on for a year or two where the defendants don't show up. Let's get them done. So we've provided them with notice, they're still not showing up, and now we're setting them up. So we're gonna be just really slammed in justice court for probably the next several months. But once we can get these cases adjudicated, that's gonna help out a lot. But justice court is, you know, and like I said, Lori, we were talking about how busy every department is, my department.
Right.
But Lori was commenting on, she understands how busy justice court is. So just to let you know too, that we're gonna be taking up a lot of justice court time because we're gonna be doing a lot of trials, but the end result is gonna be, then we're not gonna have to have any more status hearings. Then we're not gonna have any more calling people.
Instead of touching a case 8 or 9 times,
At
it might be
least,
4.
we have some cases, I've only been here 14 months, we still have cases that I started January of 17 that we have not resolved. So Kirk basically was the one that kind of pushed us. We have to get these done. So we're gonna have bench trials, and if the people aren't there, we motion to proceed in absentia. The court determines whether or not the defendant should have been or did know that he should have been there. And if he's not, we're gonna proceed. So that means we're gonna be subpoenaing all the highway patrols or the, you know, the motor carriers or the deputies. And we've got, I think it's the 29th of March and then like April 16th, all day. We're doing
Right,
trials
29th.
every half hour.
And then I think the 12th and the 19th of April.
12th and 19th, we're just doing 2, 2:30, 3, 3:30. And so that's just something to be aware of. And like we said, we know all the departments are struggling, but just from my involvement with it, and then just looking at the sheer numbers of tickets, to have a 20% increase in 1 year in tickets, that's significant. And just to be fair to Justice Court, would I like help? Sure. But do I feel like, I mean more than just my mental health. But do I think Justice Court needs this halftime person?
Well,
Absolutely.
Well, even the time taken out, that they're gonna have to be in court, there's a lot of paperwork involved beforehand and after for each one of those trials.
And yeah, and if we're taking up a couple days and we're doing 6, 8 trials, and it's not gonna be forever, but we've got so many
Couple of
cases.
months of that at least.
Yeah.
Well-
And it'll be good to get it done, but it's gonna be extremely
And if
labor
you're,
intensive.
well, initially, I'll speak first, I don't know the other two, but initially I was adamantly against it until we could find out where our budget was and what the other offices were gonna have happen. But if our county attorney says we can hire on the preface that this job may not be there after June 30, and if when you guys do go to school and we had to hire a fill-in like Cheryl or whoever, it's $8 an hour, and you're advertising at $9,
Which is the lowest
And-
in the courthouse.
and we're 3/4 through the year now, and your salaries budget normally would be 75% spent, but they're only at 70. I'm softening my stance that if we can put that clause in there that this job may not,
And I hope you're not giving it to us knowing you're gonna just automatically, but I hope you relook at it again in July with additional information. But right now, we're not even focused on next year. We just need to get someone back in. Because with 3 months, like Ellen said, you know, not only are we gonna fall behind because we're down a person, but our workload's gonna increase. So, I mean, I understand that money's hard, but the flip side of this is that we are actually helping bring in money to compensate.
right, it kind of pays for itself.
So if you get rid of that position, there's a potential that you're getting rid of $10,000 or $11,000 just flat
Because you
out right
can't,
there.
you're not able to pursue it.
Correct. So you're gonna go from really not any benefit. If we get rid of this position, they may not be bringing in tons of revenue, but they're at least bringing in enough to help pay for what the job they're doing. And I would believe there would be more to it than that there would be a bigger help for just that portion of it.
Well, I guess I would have to agree with Roman then too, if that's the case. I mean, I think that.
I mean, I feel comfortable because the money is there. I mean, it's already been
Right,
budgeted.
right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, all we know is it's only there till June 30th.
Yeah,
So that's-
and I mean, if
and
we have to
things may
set, then
change.
do you do a reduction in force to get rid of that person? Is that
Not
what you're?
necessarily, I
Not
don't think
necess-
it'll be a reduction in force, because that'll still be a person that's not, well, and they're part-time, but they'll still be under their, probationary period.
Probationary
And with
period.
probationary period, and then on halftime, I could even look into that, probationary period might, well, you can extend probationary period longer than 6 months or whatever.
Right.
Right.
You may be able to extend it even longer with part-time or based on performance.
Yeah.
So I feel comfortable, especially with it being probably in the person's first 3 months. With the knowledge, I know that there was nothing that was, I had no idea, or I wasn't aware, I moved here from Missoula.
Right.
Right, and like I said, we were very clear to each person we interviewed that there was a potential that if they hired on, because again, it was, I think, Brandy started in July, but we were interviewing prior to that we told her right up front, once it comes time for budgets, we cannot guarantee this position.
Right.
Not even part-time, but even a position at all. And so people knew about that before they were willing to accept the position with us.
And that's
And
why
you'd hate to see that. You'd hate to see the time put in to train this person.
Well, that's
Well,
why-
that's
that
what
was
we've
my
always
concern,
said, but I
too.
mean,
Right,
you
you know.
gotta do, when it comes
But,
budget time, you gotta
somebody
do what
can
you
get
gotta
up
do.
to speed in a month, or at least be helpful
Right.
to have them for 2 months as opposed to nothing.
Right.
Like I said, because then I feel good about that as, in terms of, my loyalty is with the county. The money's already been appropriated to you, so we're not asking for anything additional.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's what
exactly
we're
what the
here.
commissioners
Well, that's
are
what was my
focusing on.
concern is
Yeah.
you've only got 3 months
Yes,
and
which is
you hate to put all that time into training
Right.
somebody for 3 months and then,
There you go.
sorry,
Yeah.
you know,
So I
so.
can
But
see.
That was
When,
just my.
when we met
And I
with,
understand that.
when we
And
met with
that's-
Senator Daines
they're
here a
definitely
few
valid.
weeks ago,
But we thought of that as well, so.
and it came down to the discussion of PILT and SRS funds, I told him, I said, when we balance our budget over there, if it doesn't balance, we send people home, and if you don't believe me, turn around and ask the sheriff. And he was but that's what it comes down to. People go home, just so you know that.
Oh, and we've seen it happen. I mean,
Yeah.
just recently, we've gone through that process and we understand. But like I said, in a lot of that, there's not a balance. You're putting money out and not getting any money in return. In this
Right.
case, we are, so it's a little bit of a different exception because we can help support that by doing the work we're doing. We're not just asking
But
for
then,
it
yeah,
free.
I realize that, but then we have to weigh the balance of, do we need another deputy? What do we need? Do we
Does
need a
Ellen
new
need
car?
help? You
Yeah.
know, I
Right.
mean,
But
But just keeping in mind,
Well, I just,
Why do we keep focusing on Ellen's mental health?
but every department, like
you're-
you said, your treasurer.
Does Ellen need help?
Why do we keep focusing on Ellen's mental health?
no, I just see you
It's
here
that
late
shirt
at
on the
night
back of your
doing-
shirt, it says, I need help.
Well, didn't he used to live in Warm Spring? Or no, Anaconda?
Well, it was yes.
Well, no, it was worse than that, it was
Same
Butte.
county.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just glad she's here.
Yeah.
I don't care where she came from,
No.
I'm just glad she's here.
No, I guess I would agree with Roman on that, then.
Call me no softy, I guess, but the budget looks good. And so it's kind of like a grant, like when Shirley Awada got the job, it was all
Right.
contingent on when the grant money's gone, so is the job. And although this is not a grant, we can still have the same
Right. and we
disclaimer,
discussed
if
it.
you will.
Yes, and we may have,
that
we
if
may
it-
have missed it. We were just also
if-
saying, this person's still going to be in their
She's still
probationary
in
period.
probation period.
So
Oh.
there's a difference on letting
Oh,
somebody go
okay.
in their probationary period that if
There
they
you go.
hire on.
Okay.
The rules are a
So we
little
got
bit
two ways to
loosened.
kind of cover it.
Mhm. I feel good about the probationary period angle.
Okay.
So I feel comfortable with that. And the big concern is, I totally understand the July 1, but as the county attorney, if they were coming in asking for more money right now,
Mhm.
I'd advise you to probably not do it. But since the money is there and the proviso that come July
And-
1, things may change.
The money is more than there, it's less than what we should be 3/4 of the year.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that would be the only concern now. Again, we were talking about, you feel so bad to bring somebody in, they start learning it, they're trained within 6 weeks, but if we have somebody even in for 3 months as opposed to nothing, and the money's already allotted for this position, the big concern, and the commissioners are well aware of it, and I appreciate that you're thinking about, but then we have to let a person know potentially you're out of a job. But I think they make a strong point too about if we have the extra help, we can bring in the money, and most of the departments, we don't bring in money.
Yeah, it's kind of like what happened to the Department of Revenue at the state level. They cut the Department of Revenue because they had budget cuts, because the revenues aren't there.
Yeah.
And now there's less people out there to collect the revenues to help them get their budget
And it's like
solved.
this vicious circle, yeah.
And I'm not
It's
saying we're
government.
any near that level,
No.
but I feel we do in some sense, we don't pay for ourselves,
But
you
we
know,
do make a
100%.
pretty good portion.
But I
Right.
think more so
Sure.
than any other office, we do try to help with that.
Well, government never really does pay for itself because we
No.
have to provide a service, not always
Right.
productivity. Yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, you know, we're trying to be really conscientious, we understand the concerns too.
Mhm.
And that's why I said, even if it is just for a period of time, if we can
Mhm.
get that help, any help between now and then is gonna be
Mhm.
appreciated. If we have to relook at this come July, then we'll talk about it then and move forward. But like I said, we've always made it a point to make sure that the people we interview know that there is that possibility that the job might not be there come July 1st due to
Mhm.
budgets, and in this case, with probationary. That does bring another question for me. Just because there's a possibility that there could be someone from inside that wants to hire on, is there a
Oh.
probationary period for someone who hires in-house?
I think that's a good point. That's a different kettle of fish.
Mhm.
I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, so right now, we obviously don't know of anybody who's interested that works in-house, but, you know, there's always someone who's talking about it. And because that was brought up as a concern, I thought I would mention that just in
We'd
case
like
there
to be
is
aware of
someone.
it. That is something we need
Yeah.
to.
And it
Where's
might
that
have to
gonna
actually be on the person who applies that
They've
will
already passed their
understand.
probation.
Do you
Yeah.
wanna, you know,
Well,
burn
it's
it
the
in?
probation
Right.
period in that office, though. I think if they go to a totally different
See,
office.
But they, yeah, I
That's
think.
what
Well, I don't
I
know.
have to look,
Yeah.
because I
I thought
just
there was
recently
some
talked about that with
confliction.
someone, and I
Yeah.
can't remember who.
I think that Brian at Mako told me that when it's an in-house thing, you can still do the 6 month, but it's called an evaluation period, not probation, because they already are an employee of
Because
the county.
that's,
Right.
So if they go to this new spot and don't pass probation, then they still have a job with the county. It's just not that job because they couldn't do it. It might go back to their old job, but then if you filled the old job, then you're kind of stuck.
that's kind of what I was just curious about.
Mhm.
Like I said, not too many people are gonna go from a full-time position to a part-time anyway.
Mm.
But there may be someone who's interested that falls within that, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention, because
Yeah, if there is, I'd like to do it, because I would hate to,
Right.
but the person would also be knowledgeable of, this could be a job that I may not be able to keep for a long time.
Right.
But if there is, I'd, like to.
And what's the likelihood
information on
that
it.
somebody who's already employed is not likely making $9 an hour would even apply?
Right, but see, with Brandy, she did. You know, she was
Yeah.
making more in detention or dispatch when she came to ours, but she was willing at the time,
Right.
knowing it was gonna be $9,
Right.
she accepted it.
Because she wanted less days of work.
Right, there was something else that fed
Yeah.
into it, so there is that possibility, and I only mention that because I don't wanna,
No, that's good, because
Mess
it
anything
is,
up.
I think it is different. Yeah, I think that's a whole different kettle of fish, so that's something I would want to make sure I look into, just to not steer somebody wrong.
not trying to shoot myself in the foot or anything here, Tom,
Yeah.
sorry, I'll keep my mouth quiet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we really do wanna be,
Way
to
to
make
think
sure we're on the
ahead,
up
Kim,
and up. But, so is that a go then? I mean,
Well, I guess we'll have to have a vote here and see what, we have a vacancy.
Well, let me go back to Ellen there for a minute. So you said you'll look into it? I mean, so
If there's
should
somebody
we-
who applies in-house,
Yeah,
and it's somebody, that they're interviewing and they understand that the job may go away June 30th and they're still willing to apply or something, I'd like to just make sure about the probationary period. Because I think right now we have two ways to go if the job goes away. The probationary period, and we gave them,
The notice.
reasonable notice. They had noticed that this was a job that could because of,
Mhm.
yes.
so how long would it take you to,
Oh, I don't think that'd be too long.
Well, and I
at all,
think in
'cause
the
I
case-
feel like somebody talked to me about this like in the last 6 or 8 months. So I
We
feel
did-
like
we
I've
did.
already done a little bit
and I
on
think
this.
it might have been because of Brand.
It might have
Yeah.
been,
But I
because I
don't know
felt
for
like,
sure.
and it was something about the probationary period though, on an in-house person going to a different department.
That as long
And
as
we
they
were-
were an employee, they couldn't go back on a probation.
That's
So
was
they're
my
calling it an
understanding.
evaluation.
So that, the
period.
evaluation I wasn't aware of,
But then the second thing, like you said, if somebody takes a job and knows that it may not be continuing after June 30th, there's the other. I mean,
Yes, so we almost have two ways to go, but I thought I would just wanna check, because I prefer to hang my hat on the
wait to
probationary
vote?
period.
mm,
That's an easier
So
way,
she
I
gets
think,
an
to cover our tookuses.
Okay.
But we do have the second option.
Well, if they're informed that there's,
Right.
Yeah, but if she wants to check into it,
But all
What do
this
you
is
think
just
we're-
doing is pushing us out further and further. The
Well, I
chances
realize
of this
that.
getting, I mean, but can we at least get it advertised? We won't be.
well, you can't
we don't even
advertise
have
it if, I mean,
But we
Well,
don't even have
if
to.
if we do find somebody that is in-house and that probationary period situation comes up, I think that's something that we could review before we make the final decision. But I'd like to see this started. We need somebody right away, and I don't want to push it out this
Another
week, next week, 2 weeks.
Well, that's why I was asking her how long she
Right.
thought it would take.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to
By
hold
the
up
time-
the
yeah.
advertising.
Yeah, by the
Because like
time
I
they
said,
do the
we
interviews,
still
she'll
have
have-
the.
But if
yeah.
we've advertised it.
And we
I mean-
still have the option of
Yeah.
the notice at the very beginning. You understand that this job is from April 1st to June 30th, 2018.
That we can't guarantee it
And,
beyond.
oh, I mean,
Yeah.
we
Right.
can't guarantee. It could, of
Right.
course, go past that. So I feel fine with that. I just like having the two
Right.
potential
Yeah.
options
Right.
on the probationary. But because I don't think you can have a county employee restart their probationary period,
Right.
even if it's a different job. The evaluation, I don't think I was aware of, but Brian knows a lot more about this than I do. so
Well,
I
he just
wanted
said
to
that
just check on that.
what you would call, because that's kind of like what with Ronnie, she's been here forever. She's taken a new position as the jail administrator.
Right, so it's gonna be more
So
like,
where it's
can
an
you perform the
evaluation
job?
period
Mhm.
for her, not a probationary period.
Right.
If she sucks at it,
That's right.
okay, you know what, you're not panning out, you go back to being whatever, and we'll have to, you know.
Right, and that makes sense,
Mhm.
because you could have somebody go over and they are completely unsuited, or they don't like it, or they know
Mhm.
they can't do
Right.
it. I feel like it might have been with, who's the woman who came back to treasurer?
Done.
Dawn. I may have done maybe a little checking on this with Dawn. So I'll have to go back and see what I can find.
So,
No, not
but
saying anything
Commissioner
about
Simons
Dawn,
has
just a
a little
probation.
apprehension on casting a vote today, because instead of having two solid, you just say one, but is the one solid enough to move
Yeah, oh,
forward?
yes, oh, sure. And also, this is just on the chance that an in-house person is
Right.
going to want to apply
Right,
for it.
right, I understand.
Honestly, I
what I
can't
said.
imagine too many in-house people if they're full-time.
Right.
and they
Just
have
trying to
job
cover all my
security.
bases.
I think
Right.
that's smart, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's probably, I mean, I'll have something figured out before you hire somebody. And
Yeah,
if
and I
you say,
think
oh my
it's a-
gosh, we do have Joe Blow and they're full-time and they want this job, I'll have it figured out by then.
Right, because even
Yeah.
by the time we get it into the paper, because it won't go in until next week, probably
Yeah,
Thursday or something.
Wednesday or
Is it
Thursday.
Yeah, Wednesday. I mean, and then by the time we close it, it's gonna be another couple of weeks past that before
Mhm.
we even close it and decide to interview. So if we can get the process started, that gives us more time to utilize that person
Mhm.
during the period that we really are gonna need them.
Okay. So do we need a motion?
I think we do for this.
Well, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and allow the Justice Court to advertise for this position, 24 hours a week at $9 an hour, with the stipulation that they're aware that it
I'll make
We
that
are
motion.
totally agreeing.
depended on budget.
Make me short
We're
time.
completely in
It might
agreement
only be
with
till
that.
June 30th, yeah.
I would
Yeah.
second that motion.
Okay. And Ellen, would you be able to help them, or you get, so that they
Sure.
can have a piece of paper that
Yeah.
explains that at each interview, and this job may,
Right, and they're very good about reminding me when I say, I'll get that to you, and then I don't, and then they'll send me
okay.
a nice little reminder email and say, Ellen, you said you'd get this to me.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions or discussion? Attorney Taryn, are you finished? All right.
Definitely not an attorney. I may be a little bit
Mhm.
speaking when I shouldn't, but speaking
All
out
right.
of turn. I'm probably gonna go back and get reprimanded.
Mm.
Not really.
We need 2 positions filled.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye, yeah.
Being none. Thanks for being here, Alan, because
No problem, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's a difficult question
I-
of,
Yeah.
you know.
I wouldn't.
But I, again, hung my hat on the money's there. The tough thing is.
Well, it helps
if
too
we
when the
have one
county
person
attorney
go-
can bolster their caseload too, tickets or whatever you're saying is happening over there.
And when we get, when the interdiction guy comes back, that always makes me nervous too, because he's back in town.
Exactly.
And then, but I, and then they say, do you want us to slow down? I said, no, just keep them coming.
Just, yeah, poor Ellen does need extra help. Maybe that could be it. We'll do
That'll be when we get
part-time with
big.
you
That's
and
when
part-time with
when the
us.
federal government sends us that check.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
be the first one.
There you go.
yeah.
We're
Well,
doing
thank
all right.
you.
Yeah.
We'll be sure and tell everybody when it shows up.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Ellen's first in line.
Maybe,
All right, thank you.
maybe a
Thanks, you
couple
guys.
days after.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.